Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto was sent to the Soul Society, joins Gotei 13. Naruto dies in his battle with Sasuke at the Valley of the End and is sent to the Soul Society where he joins the Gotei 13. 3 years later Naruto becomes the captain of the 3rd Division shortly after the Ryoka invasion before he, along with Ichigo and Rinji, is sent on a mission to the Shinobi world. What will happen when Naruto ends up in Konoha? Find out here. Welcome aboard! Chapter 9, Trouble in the Shinobi World. Disclaimer, still applies. After Aizen's escape. After the final showdown between Naruto, Aizen, and his two subordinates, Naruto was sent to the Sogo Kyugotsumesho for a couple days in order to recuperate from overusing his Bankai and Kurama's shroud. Those two things had placed great strain on his body, which is why he had suddenly collapsed after his battle with Aizen, but thanks to the immense stamina that he inherited from his Uzumaki clan lineage, he had recovered at a shocking speed. Naruto had decided to only use both abilities at the same time as a last resort though. After he had fully recovered, Naruto spent the next 2 days running the 13th Division due to Captain Ukitake being temporarily beset by another bout of illness, but he had also managed to hang out with Ichigo and his friends, though Ichigo was still recovering from his battle with Byakuya and was also hanging around the 11th Division barracks, who had hung out in Siriitii for a couple of days. He had also managed to make some amends with Byakuya who was still recovering from his fight with Ichigo, but there were still some things that they had to work on. Naruto had also learned, unfortunately, that there had been fatalities as a result of Aizen's actions as the entirety of Central 46 had been murdered. This meant that the full authority over Soul Society was now in the hands of Genryusai Yamamoto. 13th Division Barracks, Siriitii, Soul Society. 5 days after Aizen's betrayal, Naruto and his captain Ukitake walked up to the 13th Division Barracks from the 1st Division Barracks and entered inside of it. Naruto looked surprised as he saw Rukia standing near the doorway along with Ichigo and the rest of the group who were checking up on her as she was still recovering from her entire ordeal. Unfortunately for everyone's sanity, Kaione and Sentaro were there as well. Kaione and Sentaro shot up at the sight of Naruto and Ukitake and rushed over to them. "Captain Ukitake! Lieutenant Uzumaki!" exclaimed Kaione as she pushed her fellow third seat aside. "Hey, Kaione!" roared Sentaro as he planted his face against hers. "I saw the captain first." "What?" Kaione slapped his across the face and jumped on him, pummeling him with her fists. "You wanna say that to my face again, Baka?" Yuri sighed and looked at Naruto. "Do those two ever stop arguing with each other?" Naruto blinked as he watched the two fight. "Nope." Rukia looked up from watching the two wrestle with each other and looked at Naruto and Ukitake. "Where have you and Naruto been, Captain Ukitake?" she asked as she glanced outside. "The sun's already setting." "Oh, that," said Ukitake. Since the 3rd, 5th, 9th Divisions had been left without a captain due to Aizen, Jin, and Tozen having defected, the captain commander had been busy finding their replacements. "I see." Rukia blinked, not understanding where her captain was going with this. Ukitake looked up at the ceiling as he thought back to the meeting that he and Naruto had just come back from. Minato and Fugaku, the lieutenants of the 5th and 9th Divisions, respectively, had both achieved Bankai a long time ago, and with the leadership experience they had from when they were still alive, they were both promoted to the captain positions of their respective divisions through personal recommendations. Also, Rukia tilted her head to the side. "Yes? I had recommended Naruto for the captain proficiency test, which is why we were at the 1st Division barracks for so long." Ichigo realized what was going on and looked at Naruto. "Oh, so you've actually been promoted to captain, Naruto?" Naruto looked down sheepishly. "Well, it's going to be made official the following morning, but..." Ichigo blinked. "What's up?" "Well, I'd much rather stay in the 13th Division and have Shisui-sensei become to captain." But Shisui-sensei had refused to take the test even though he had met the requirements because he feels that he's not the type to be a leader, but even so, Naruto. Naruto stopped talking and turned around to see Rukia walking up to him. His eyes widened in surprise as she wrapped her arms around him, giving him a light hug. Naruto blushed slightly at this. Despite having an easier time making friends since coming to the Soul Society, he was still a little uncomfortable when girls gave him that type of close contact since his most vivid memory of such contact when he was still alive was whenever Sakura would punch him in the face. "I'm happy for you," said Rukia unexpectedly. "You deserve the promotion, Naruto, and you should accept it proudly." Naruto smiled at this. Thank you, Rukia. Kion, who had finished pummeling Sentaro, ran over to Naruto and bowed deeply. Congratulations, Captain Naruto, she said with a big grin on her face. I'll miss you a lot, and I dash. No, I'll miss you more, Captain Naruto. Yelled Sentaro as he came rushing up to him. Hey, I was talking to him first, you baka. Scolded Kion as she punched Sentaro in the face. Naruto blinked as he watched the two fight once more. I wonder if they even know that I'll still be able to visit the 13th Division. So Kayako Hill, Suriitai, Soul Society. 2 days later, Ichigo and his friends, along with Naruto, Yukitake, Minato, Fugaku, and the other Shinobigami, arrived at Sokayaku Hill where a Senkaman had been prepared for Ichigo and his friends. Yukitake had already given Ichigo the substitute Shinigami badge. Naruto and his dad were now wearing a sleeveless captain's Hayori, while Fugaku was wearing a long-sleeved one that had its sleeves ripped off. Kushina and Shursui had been promoted to vice-captains and now wore vice-captain armbands. A couple of the other captains were present as well to see Ichigo and his friends off. Ichigo and Rukia looked at each other as they bid their farewells to each other. Well, see ya, said Ichigo as he smiled at her. Yeah. Rukia gave him a small smile. See you later. Ichigo turned to look at Naruto, and Naruto walked up to him. Take care of Rukia for me, Naruto, said Ichigo. Of course, I will. Replied Naruto with a grin. After they bumped fists, Ichigo turned around and entered the Senkaman along with his friends. Until we meet again, Naruto, said Ichigo, and with that, he disappeared. After the Senkaman closed, Naruto remained still as he stared at the gate. Ichigo and I might have to see each other much sooner than expected. Naruto! Called Rukia as she turned around to walk away. Yeah, I'm coming. Answered Naruto, running after her. Karakura High School, Karakura Town. 6 months later. Ichigo yawned as he dropped down on his seat, exhausted. Rukia, who was sitting next to him, blinked and slapped him across the head. Hey! Scowled Ichigo as he glared at her. What was that for? Pay attention, idiot, sniffed Rukia, who had resumed her duties as the guardian of Karakura Town a few weeks prior. High school's important at your age, you know. Ichigo rolled his eyes as he picked up his pencil for the test that was today. Ichigo's teacher walked in the classroom at that moment and slapped a ruler across the palm of her hand. Okay everyone, she said. Does everyone have a pencil ready? Yes? Okay, good. She glanced around the room and nodded. Beg dash. Oi, Ichigo. Ichigo, his teacher, and his classmates all turned around as they heard someone calling for him from outside the school. Ichigo blinked. Ha! Hurry up and come out before I go in there and start looking for you, Ichigo. You've got 5 minutes. Yelled the voice. Yuria narrowed his eyes. I know that voice. Oki Misato, Ichigo's teacher, turned to look at Ichigo, as did the rest of the people in the room. Hey Kurosaki, do you know that dash? Ichigo jumped out of his seat and sprinted outside the classroom before she could finish. Just a relative. Ichigo yelled out as he ran outside of the room. Ichigo's teacher blinked. Your relative? Outside of the school, a blonde-haired figure stood under a tree with an orange t-shirt and black pants on. Ichigo! Yelled the figure as he cupped his hands around his mouth. Hey Ichigo! A voice behind the figure sighed before when spoke it was in a stoic and calm male voice. Do you really think that this Ichigo character will come out if you keep yelling for him? The blonde-haired figure stopped yelling and turned around to face the figure behind him. Of course, he will, he replied. I know that Ichigo will come out, there's your proof right in front of you. The second figure turned around to see where the blonde was pointing at, and he blinked in surprise as he saw a tall orange-haired figure heading their way. There he is! Sang the blonde-haired figure as he saw him. Ichigo! Ichigo scowled at the figure as he charged at him, his head bowed. Have you lost your fucking mind, Naruto? He roared as he angrily charged at him. Naruto easily sidestepped Ichigo's attack without even looking as stared at the school building with a bored look on his face. Ichigo crashed into the tree that Naruto had been hiding under and quickly jumped up with a red mark on his face. So is that how you greet the guy who helped you to control your inner hollow and taught you to control Ryatsu enough so that you could place your Zanpakuto in a sealed state? Asked Naruto angrily yet comically. 2 months after Ichigo had returned home, Naruto had come to Karakura town and, with the captain commander's permission, trained Ichigo to control his inner hollow, which had nearly broken out several times before that point, and he had also taught Ichigo how to place his Zanpakuto in a sealed state, as the Ryatsu from Ichigo's constant released Shurikai was causing the number of hollows and the incidents related to them to steadily increase. Ichigo remained angry despite this and shook his fist at Naruto. It is when that same guy makes a huge ruckus in front of my friends in order to get my attention. Before the two teenagers could argue any further, the voice from earlier coughed, getting both of their attentions. Naruto, please remember that we have come for something other than a fistfight. At this point Rukia arrived at the scene. She seemed surprised by Naruto's appearance. And Naruto? What are you doing here? Wait. Rukia's eyes widened as she felt something near her. There's someone on the other side of the tree. You come out of there now. She ordered when she recognized the person's Ryatsu. The figure sighed and walked out from behind the tree, revealing himself to Ichigo and Rukia. The figure had black hair that he had tied into a low ponytail all the way down to his shoulder blades. He was wearing a dark blue shirt and gray pants. His most noticeable feature was the tear troughs under each of his eyes, as well as his red eyes with 3 tomos in each eye. Ichigo's eyes widened as he saw the figure. The Sharingan? He cleared his throat as he stared at the figure with narrowed eyes. Are you an Uchiha? He asked slowly. The figure nodded, confirming this. My name is Itachi Uchiha. I'm Ichigo Kurosaki, said Ichigo. This guy acts a lot like Byakuya. I think that I remember that name. Ichigo had learned from the other Uchihas well, as Naruto was unwilling to discuss the matter of Itachi and the things that he had done. Are you a Shinigami now as well? Asked Ichigo. Yes, replied Itachi. Itachi had died just a little over a year ago, explained Naruto. I won't go into the details, but he had graduated from the Shino Academy just a week before Rukia had returned to Karakura town, and he's now my vice-captain. Kira Izuru was demoted to the 3rd seat. I tried to get him into the Gotei 13 without getting into the academy first because of the approaching conflict with Aizen and his lackeys, but the other captains rejected this, and dash. But why are you and this Itachi here in the first place? Asked Rukia, realizing that something serious was going on. Naruto's expression suddenly turned solemn before Ichigo, who suddenly realized what was going on, looked at Naruto. Is something happening in the shinobi world, Naruto? Itachi answered this question. Something is going to happen very soon, and we know for a fact that Aizen is getting involved in it. Ichigo narrowed his eyes. Naruto, did you come to ask for my help by any chance? Naruto nodded after a brief pause. I need someone that I can trust, but I'll understand if you can't dash. Ichigo shook his head, interrupting him. I'll do it. Naruto gaped at him in surprise. Ha! You're my friend, said Ichigo bluntly. Also, after all the time you had taken to train me, it's the least that I could do. I see. But I do have 2 conditions, said Ichigo. First, I want to say bye to my friends as I'm sure that this journey's going to take a while, and secondly, you have to tell me what the problem is that you need my help with. Naruto nodded even though he had been planning to explain the situation to Ichigo regardless of whether or not he asked for one. Agreed, but the explanation will have to wait until we get to Siriitii as some details have to be provided with others. Ichigo nodded, signaling that he understood. Itachi blinked and turned around to leave. We will be waiting for you at Kasuke Urahara's shop, he said. Naruto had met Urahara the first he had come to Karakura town, while Itachi had met him shortly before he and Naruto had come to Ichigo's high school. And with that, Naruto and Itachi headed off towards Urahara's shop, leaving Ichigo and Rukia alone to ponder on the situation. Chapter 10, Departure to the Shinobi World. Siriitii, Soul Society. Ichigo looked around the area as he, Naruto, and Itachi arrived in Siriitii. Ichigo also had his Zangetsu in its new sealed state. It was now in the shape of his original oversized katana except that it had a silver tsuba and pommel with a black hilt. Attached to the pommel was a short, broken-off black chain. The brown sheath was also now attached to the red rosary-like strap around Ichigo's chest. The trio entered the Captain Commander's office a few minutes later, stepping into his office and beginning to explain the situation to Ichigo. Welcome Ichigo Kurosaki, Captain Uzumaki, Lieutenant Uchiha, said Yamamoto. What's up, Gramps? sniffed Ichigo. It appears that Aizen has been sighted in the shinobi world, and we have also been informed that he had been trying to create an alliance with a group known as the Akatsuki since he had left Soul Society with Ikimaru and Tozen, explained Yamamoto. Wait. Ichigo scratched his head as he thought. So why are these Akatsuki guys so dangerous? It seems that they are after a group of beasts known as bijus, excluding your bijou of course, Captain Uzumaki, said Yamamoto. Since he died, he cannot be revived back into that world. At this point, Itachi stepped in. I was concerned about the danger that the group posed to Konoha, so I had joined the Akatsuki in order to keep an eye on them and to stall them for as long as I was able to. Shortly before my death, however, I was able to learn that the Akatsuki had planned to make their move the following year, and that time is now approaching fast. While the second division and the Onmatsukido are the ones with sole jurisdiction over the shinobi world, the possibility of Aizen getting involved and acquiring the other bijus as a result. We can no longer allow just a single division to handle the situation in hand, explained the captain commander. As a result of this situation, Captain Suifone and you, Captain Uzumaki, will lead a 5-man team to the shinobi world to eliminate the Akatsuki before they can acquire the biju. You should also note that Captain Hitsugaya and Lieutenant Abarai have volunteered to join the mission. Ichigo thought about this. So, are we going to be, asking for help from Konoha as well? Suifone, who had been standing in the back of the room, stepped in for this question. That's a negative, she answered. While they can see us Shinigami, they still do not know of our existence, and unless Aizen directly targets the shinobi world, it will stay this way. Since we have to briefly go to Konoha regardless of that matter, Uzumaki Taishu will be going there with his identity concealed. I see, replied Ichigo. Are there any questions? Asked the captain commander. He was met with silence. Very well then, he said. All 5 members of the team are to make preparations for the journey. You shall all be departing for the shinobi world in exactly 5 hours. Everyone nodded and headed for the door, each member headed for their respective division barracks, with Ichigo going with Naruto and Itachi to get a few things for the journey. As Naruto and the others entered the 3rd Division barracks, he stopped and turned to Itachi. Itachi, you'll be taking charge of the 3rd Division while I'm gone, so don't go and screw this up, okay? Itachi blinked, his face just as blank as always. You mean like the time you blew up the SRDI? Hey! Raged Naruto as they reached his office. Shut it! Naruto opened the door to his office, and once they stepped inside, Ichigo looked around the slightly spacious room, examining and taking in every detail of the room. The room was about 25 by 25 feet, and aside from the shelves and cabinets overflowing with papers and documents, there was a desk in the opposite side of the room with a lamp and 3 picture frames. The 3 pictures were what caught Ichigo's eyes. As he walked over to the desk, what he saw surprised him. The picture on the left was a picture of Naruto and his parents. The one in the middle was a picture of Naruto, Yukitake, Kaion, Sentaro, and Rukia, and the picture on the right was a picture of Naruto with Team 7. Wow! Say, aren't you worried that you might blow your cover, Naruto? Asked Ichigo as Itachi leaned over him, looking at the pictures. Naruto walked over to one of the cabinets and opened it up, rummaging through the stuff in the drawer. Well, that's the reason why these were made for me, he replied. Naruto turned around to face Ichigo wearing a black hooded cloak over his uniform along with a mask. It was large enough to completely cover his body, and Ichigo noticed that it repressed all but a fifth of his Ryatsu. The mask that he wore was a kitsune mask with narrow eye holes. There were also 3 triangular burgundy-colored stripes on each cheek, and the small ears of the mask were colored dark red. Ichigo noticed with mild surprise that Naruto's hair, which was blonde, was now jet black. So, does that mask do anything? Yeah, it does, Naruto confirmed. This mask projects an illusionary Kido. Urahara-sen made this for me around the time that I was training you. Having said this, he pulled a second cloak out of the cabinet and tossed it to Ichigo. Here, put this on. Ha! Ichigo blinked. Why do I have to wear one? Don't worry, said Naruto, reassuring him. The cloak is only to suppress your Ryatsu. If we don't, then your Ryatsu could draw unnecessary attention from the Konoha-nin, as they're always wary of outsiders. Alright, grumbled Ichigo as he put on the cloak. Oh, stop grumbling, said Naruto in an annoyed tone. Suifone, Toshiro, and Rinji all have to wear one as well. Naruto then turned to Itachi. Okay, Itachi. Good luck with everything, and dash. Let me give you one last word of warning, said Itachi, stopping Naruto. I gave Sasuke my eyes before I died, so he now possesses the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. If you do go to Konoha, be careful with him. Naruto nodded, a serious look appearing on his face. I know. Anyway, continued Naruto, glancing sideways at Ichigo. Ichigo, it's time to leave. Got it, replied Ichigo, stretching out his arms and legs. Let's go. And with that, he and Naruto Flash stepped away to the 2nd Division Barracks, leaving Itachi to himself. 2nd Division Barracks, Suriitai, Soul Society. Ichigo looked up with an impatient look on his face as he waited outside near the forested area near the 2nd Division Barracks along with Naruto and Soifun. Geez, sighed Ichigo. Where are those two? Soifun was wearing a black cloak similar to the ones that Naruto and Ichigo were wearing, but hers was a little bit smaller, and she was also wearing a mask. It was a white mask with 2 narrow slits for eye holes that also had 2 blue vertical stripes as a design, each one going down past each slit. Unlike Naruto's, hers wasn't projecting an illusionary kido. So, said Ichigo for like the 10th time that day. Why is Soifun wearing a mask if it doesn't do anything? Oh, that, said Naruto. Well, due to various assassinations of certain high-leveled shinobis learning a bit too much about spiritual-related matters, Soifun has quite the reputation in the shinobi world, which is why her identity needs to be concealed. Ichigo seemed surprised by this. Wow, really? Ichigo! Ichigo and the others turned around to see Renji and Toshiro running towards them. Hey, Renji! Yelled Ichigo, waving his hands at them. Once the both of them arrived at the spot where Ichigo and the others were waiting, Ichigo saw that they were wearing the same black cloaks that everyone else was wearing. Well, that took long enough, said Ichigo, glaring comically at Renji. Renji blinked, confused. What? He looked at Hitsugaya, then at Ichigo. Wait, what do you mean, that took long enough? We were the furthest away, dumbass. Yeah, whatever, said Ichigo, waving him off. Of course, dumbass use stupid excuses, dumbass. Ha? Renji leaned over at Ichigo, his face pressed against Ichigo's. You wanna say something, substitute? Ichigo's face grew red at this. Oh yeah? Well, I may be a substitute Shinigami, but I can still kick your ass. He scowled. You wanna try? Yelled Renji. Ichigo grabbed the hilt of his Zanpakuto from behind his back. Let's do it. I'll kick your dash. Thud. Ichigo and Renji fell on the ground as Naruto slammed both of their heads together, rubbing their heads as they glared at each other. Stop arguing, you idiots. Raged Naruto. If you guys didn't notice, we're about to go on a freaking mission here. Toshiro sighed as he pinched the bridge of his nose in exasperation. Those bakas. He then turned to Naruto, who was standing over the troublesome duo. My apologies, Naruto-san, he apologized. It seems that we kept you guys waiting for quite some time. It's nothing, said Naruto, waving his apology off. If you guys are done arguing, please look over here, said Soifun, catching their attention. Once she got everyone's attention, she raised her hand and snapped her fingers, the sound echoing throughout the clearing. Ichigo looked on in amazement as a large red torii gate materialized in front of the group, the double doors slowly creaking open. W.O. This gate is the official portal to the shinobi world, explained Soifun. Since the shinobi world is a completely world from the world of the living, it's only natural that there's a different form of the usual Senkaman, and anyone who's either a former shinobi or a member of the Onmitsukido and the 2nd Division would have knowledge of how to use this gate. Now, be careful once we enter the shinobi world, she added, turning to specifically look at Ichigo. The Akatsuki members that we're supposedly hunting are extremely dangerous S-rank nuke-nin. But we might need to fight against shinobis from the other shinobi villages that were forbidden to kill under any circumstances. After giving everyone the warning, Soifun turned to the Senkaman, motioning for everyone to follow her. She and Naruto, the only ones among the group wearing masks, pulled up their hoods as they entered the Senkaman gate. Valley of the End, the shinobi world. 1 minute later, Naruto and the others looked around their surrounding area as they arrived in the shinobi world. The area around them was basically just large masses of rocks shaped into the form of makeshift mountains. In the middle of the 2 mountains was a large body of water, and in the very front of the valley was a waterfall with 2 figures carved from rock standing on either side of it. The figure on the left was a figure with long and spiky hair with his bangs swept to the side and covering one eye. He wore a traditional samurai armor, and his right hand was clasped against the hilt of his sword. The figure on the right had long straight hair, and he was wearing a headband around his forehead. He was also clad in some kind of samurai-like armor, and both figures had their left hands up with their index and middle finger up while their other fingers were curled into a fist. Renji scratched his chin as he looked around the area. So, what exactly is this place, Naruto? This is the Valley of the End, replied Naruto, closing his eyes and breathing in the fresh air. A long time ago, there was a fierce battle between the two legendary shinobi Madara Uchiha and Hashirama Senju. Their fight was so fierce and devastating that their battle left a giant scar on the land. This place. Ichigo, Renji, and Toshiro looked surprised. Wow, stuttered Ichigo. That sounds intense. Toshiro turned to look at Soifun. Is this true, Captain Soifun? Soifun nodded in response. It is. I actually witnessed the battle myself with my own two eyes. Uchiha Madara and Hashirama Senju. Their powers are absolutely frightening. Anyway, the Onmitsukido built a hideout a few miles south of the valley, so we'll rest there for the night. Ichigo narrowed his eyes as he stared at Naruto, noticing the fact that he was staring intently at the center of the valley. Soifun, also noticing this, walked over to Naruto and laid a hand on his shoulder. Are you all right, Naruto? She asked, a surprising tone of genuine concern in her voice. Naruto sighed. Yeah. Ichigo blinked, a confused look on his face. What did Soifun mean by that, Naruto? Naruto turned to look at Ichigo, a fierce light in his eyes. This was where I fought my friend Sasuke before I died. He had just betrayed the village in order to join this guy named Orochimaru, an extremely powerful shinobi who wanted to take control of Sasuke's body for his Sharingan. I tried to stop him, but he wouldn't listen, so we ended up fighting it out. At the final moment of our fight, I used Kurama's chakra to create an enhanced version of my most powerful jutsu, Rasengan, while Sasuke used the power of the curse mark that Orochimaru had given him to create an enhanced version of his most powerful jutsu, Chidori. Our jutsus collided, and the result of it is what you see here, he said, pointing to the chunks of rocks missing from the two figures' legs. Sasuke ended up piercing me through the chest, continued Naruto. As I fell into the water, I found out that I was paralyzed by the electricity from his attack, so I couldn't move my body. It was then that I realized that I was going to die. He sighs, I just hope that Sasuke and the others are okay. Naruto suddenly looked up at Ichigo and the rest of the group, shaking off his past memories of his final battle. Anyways, we should go to the hideout and rest for a bit. Ichigo nodded. Yeah. Let's go. The group then headed off towards the hideout, following Soifun and Naruto's lead as the latter flung through the trees. Chapter 11, Showdown in Konoha. Konoha Gate, Konoha, the shinobi world. Naruto, Ichigo, and the other Shinigami looked up as they approached Konoha's main gate. They all had their black cloaks on, but Naruto and Soifun were the only ones who had their hoods up. Ichigo glanced at his pass, and then at Naruto and Soifun, who had their masks on. So, why does my pass have my actual name on it, and yet yours and Soifun's are aliases? Asked Ichigo, looking at Naruto. Before they arrived in Konoha, Soifun had given every member of the group a pass that was necessary to enter any of the shinobi villages. Ichigo, Renji, and Toshiro's passes all had their actual names on them, while Naruto and Soifun's had aliases written on them. Naruto's alias read Menma, while Soifun's read Wasupu. Naruto turned to Ichigo, and when he spoke, the mask had altered his voice to the point where he sounded similar to his father, Minato, but exactly like him. Unlike Soifun Wasupu and I, no one knows who you are, Ichigo, so you can use your name without much difficulty. That's also the reason why you're acting as an escort for us. Now, the first part of the Shinigami's plan was to go to Konoha, where Soifun had a covert access to all of the village's networks, including one of the legendary Sanin's Jiraiya's spy network. This was to gather any information on their targets and, more importantly, where those targets would strike next. Renji and Hitsugaya's part were to locate the Jinchurikis outside of their villages and get them back to the said villages or any other safe location if they happen to be missing means. In order to lower the amount of suspicions of their true identities, Naruto and Soifun would be traveling under the pretense that they were members of the Land of Grass Daimyo's family. This was fitting as Traveling nobles often kept their identities concealed in the shinobi world, and Ichigo would be acting as their escort under the pretense that they had been on a trip to the Land of Waves. Once they had obtained their intel, which would take at least a few days, Naruto and his group would rendezvous with Rinji and Hitsugaya at the Kanobi Bridge in the Land of Grass before deciding their next move. Ichigo scratched his head as he heard the explanation from Naruto and Soifun. Are the Konoha ninjas really gonna buy such a story? They sound like a bunch of dull group of people if they are. Well, they had better, or we might have a group of those pesky shinobi from the ANBU Black Ops division tailing us for hours after we leave. Ichigo sighed but remained silent as the group reached the gate. Konoha Cemetery, Konoha, the shinobi world. 3 days later. A tall figure with spiked black hair walked across the cemetery and stopped in front of 2 graves placed next to each other. He wore a sleeveless dark gray shirt along with dark blue pants, and he also had on a pair of black metal forearm gauntlets along with a dark gray Konoha headband on his neck. On his back were 2 blades of kodachi and a wakizashi that were worn diagonally across from each other. The figure was Sasuke Uchiha, and he had just finished visiting his mother and father's graves and was now standing in front of 2 tombstones where he pressed his hands together and bowed, paying his respects to the 2 deceased. The 2 tombstones were decorated with pale yellow lilies and dark red roses, and on them were carved the name of the 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze, and his wife, Kushina Uzumaki, along with a few other things to honor their memories. 4th Hokage. Kushina Uzumaki, whispered Sasuke, his eyes closed as he straightened up from his bow. Why didn't I listen to Naruto sooner? After the battle at the Valley of the End, Naruto had been considered to be MIA and not dead, as the Konoha shinobis had no idea what had really happened to him. After Sakura and the others intervened, Sasuke had not been punished by the council for his actions. He still wished to seek out Orochimaru and extract his revenge on Itachi, but Jiraiya, realizing just how important Sasuke was to Naruto, decided to reveal Naruto's heritage, as well as another few important facts about him, and why Naruto had gone so far as to bring Sasuke back. Upon hearing the truth about Naruto, as well as his conscience beginning to heavily weigh down upon him, Sasuke developed a tremendous amount of guilt for trying to kill his best friend. This also caused him to awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan, which in turn purged Orochimaru's conscience from the curse mark, even though Sasuke still wielded the power of the curse mark. He then decided to put his desire for revenge aside in favor of finding Naruto and bringing him back to Konoha. Sasuke confronted Itachi a year later before Naruto's mission, and after telling Itachi of what he planned to do as well as declaring that until he had brought Naruto back to Konoha, he wouldn't seek him out in order to kill him, Itachi realized just how much he had grown and had decided to tell Sasuke the truth of the night of the massacre. Upon hearing this, Sasuke lost the desire for revenge, but at Itachi's insistence, they decided to fight each other then and there, if only to settle the issue once and for all. Sasuke defeated Itachi due to Itachi's illness plaguing him, but had been left nearly blind due to overusing his Mangekyo Sharingan. Itachi then asked Sasuke to take his own eyes as a last request and asked him to use them to protect Konoha. Sakura, who had been present for the whole entire battle, proceeded to implant Itachi's eyes into Sasuke once he had been confirmed dead. Sasuke gained the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, and his will to find Naruto grew even stronger, and he was also now preparing for an inevitable confrontation with Tobi after he had done so. In addition to this, the rest of the Konoha 11 as well as Sai, who had temporarily replaced Naruto as a team member, were willing to give him another chance as he was changing for the better. As a result of the past events, Sasuke visited Minato and Kushina's graves once a year on the day that he had fought against Naruto at the Valley of the End. Sasuke-kun. Sasuke looked up from his deep thoughts and opened his eyes, turning around to see Sakura standing behind him, her hands clasped in front of her. Sakura, who looked and dressed very similar from the old her a couple years ago, had grown out her hair, and she now styled the back of her hair into a long ponytail which hung past her neck. She had grown taller, and her body had more curves. She now wore a red sleeveless red top that stopped right below her bosom, and she also wore a red miniskirt with slits on the sides as well as a mesh bodysuit on underneath her red top that stopped right above her belly button. The mesh also extended all the way up to her forearms where it stopped, and she also wore them underneath her miniskirt with bandages wrapped around her left leg. She still wore her headband behind her front bangs, and she wore her usual long black boots. Sakura. What is it? Asked Sasuke quietly. The others have already headed out, and Sai's waiting for us right now, said Sakura. Very well. Sasuke sighed and glanced one last time at the 2 graves before turning around and walking away. As Sasuke passed Sakura, she opened her mouth to speak.
It's been 3 years since Naruto disappeared, she said. Sasuke-kun, do you think that we'll ever find him?
Sasuke paused next to her, his bowed head.
We'll find him, Sakura. We just have to. Sakura nodded, and they both vanished into thin air as they went to meet up with Sai.
Ichigo turned to Naruto as they walked through the Konoha training grounds.
Hey, in our Menma, I guess that the Konoha shinobi aren't a bunch of idiots after all.
This happened because you called them that, Ichigo, he frowned.
Ichigo, and Soifun suddenly used Flash Step to dodge a wave of Fuma shurikens that flew towards them.
The trio turned to see 9 figures standing behind them. Naruto's eyes widened in shock from behind his mask. Of all the people they could have sent, they had to send my friends.
Naruto thought to himself as he and his companions were confronted by his friends from teams Asuma Kurenai and Guy. One of the figures stepped forward and extended his hand out. He wore a long white robe-like shirt with loose sleeves that closed on the right shoulder along with matching pants and a dark navy gray apron tied around his waist.
Please forgive Tenten's rudeness just now, he said as he motioned to a female with Chinese-style buns on either side of her head standing next to him.
My name is Niji Hyuga, a jonin of this village. Now, please stand down and make this as easy as possible for the both of us. We have been ordered by the Hokage to arrest you 3 and bring you in for questioning.
Ichigo bared his teeth as he grabbed the hilt of his sealed zanpakuto, which was holstered on the back of his cloak.
Screw you.
You can take those orders and shove them up your ass if you think that we're just gonna go anywhere with you guys.
What?
Tenten pointed at Ichigo, a smirk on her face.
You seriously think that we can't take care of a bunch of lost idiots? There's 9 of us or 3 of you.
She's right, orange-haired kid, mumbled a fairly chubby male with long spiky brown hair that hung past his back.
We've got the advantage by sheer numbers alone.
Oi, I wasn't talking to you, you fat ass.
Spat Ichigo. Naruto drew back from Ichigo as he saw the figure's face turn red.
Oh.
He just called Choji fat. We're fucked. We're so fucked. What did you just call me? Whispered Choji venomously.
He suddenly seemed to explode as he charged at Ichigo, his fist drawn back.
I'm not fat, you jackass. I'm just pleasantly plump.
Choji's eyes suddenly widened as Soifun stepped in between them and stopped Choji's punch. As she stopped my punch, with a single hand.
Maybe I should have just said no.
Mumbled Ichigo as he saw the other 8 figures taking their stance.
Gee, you think? Grumbled Naruto as he reached for his zanpakuto.
Soifun glanced back at the 2 out of the corner of her eyes as she tightened her grip on Choji's fist, causing him to wince. Save your strength for the 3 other ninjas heading this way, you two, she said. I'll deal with these guys myself. Niji narrowed his eyes as he quickly executed a couple of hand seals.
Byakugan.
He thought as he stared at Soifun.
This woman. If I'm correct, she's most likely at the level of a powerful Kage, and the 2 men are even stronger than that. This is going to be tough. Soifun's mouth curved into a wide grin as she felt a slight excitement rise up from inside of her. Bring it!
Niji shifted his feet and charged at her with an impressive speed, jabbing his palm out as he aimed for her heart. Soifun saw this coming and tightened her grip on Choji's fist, throwing him over her shoulders and dropping on the ground, kicking up at Niji's arm with her foot.
Lee, now!
Said Niji, glancing back at a bowl-cut figure wearing a green jumpsuit underneath a rough green flak jacket.
Get ready, intruder!
Cried Lee, launching a swift combination of high and low kicks at Soifun. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she dodged all of his kicks easily.
He's not extremely skilled, but he's fast alright. I'll give him that much.
He suddenly crouched down on the ground as he swept his leg at her feet. Soifun saw this out of the corner of her eyes as she parried all of Niji's blows and grabbed her zanpakuto, stabbing it into the ground and spinning in midair.
She quickly landed a rapid succession of kick on both taijutsu users, sending them flying backwards. Mind transfer jutsu.
Soifun's eyes slightly widened in surprise as she saw a blonde-haired girl staring at her with her arms outstretched, her index and middle fingers along with her thumbs shaped in the form of a circle. She quickly used Flash Step to dodge the jutsu, appearing behind the figure and knocking her out before she had a chance to react.
Choji ran towards her, his fist drawn back. Partial expansion jutsu! He cried. His entire right arm suddenly expanded, and he slammed his fist into the spot that Soifun was just at, the ground below him rumbling and cracking. Soifun wrapped her legs around his neck, and executed a backflip,
throwing him over her and sending him crashing into a tree. She suddenly sensed a figure behind her and spun around, raising her arms and blocking an attack from a long black-haired girl with similar eyes as the first figure.
Hado number 1, show, thrust, said Soifun, pointing her finger at the girl. Hinata!
Yelled out a messy brown-haired figure as she went flying into a tree. He swore as Soifun appeared behind her and kneed her in the stomach, knocking her out.
Damn it!
Just what the hell is she? He rushed at Soifun, his eyes narrowed.
Let's go, Akamaru! He roared as a large white dog ran by his side. Ninpo, beast human clone.
Akamaru suddenly disappeared in a cloud of smoke, emerging from it as an exact copy of his owner.
Fong over Fong!
He roared as he and his copy jumped into the air, rotating at an almost violent speed.
Too weak!
Called out Soifun as she dropped to the ground, kicking both of them as they passed over her and sending them flying into the air. She crouched down on the ground and jumped into the air, flipping over and executing a dropkick on both of them.
Thud!
The ground seemed to explode as both figures slammed into the ground. A figure in a sea green jacket wearing his hood over his face as well as a high upturned collar extended his hands, sending a swarm of insects towards her.
Go, my insects!
He called out as the bugs swarmed in her direction.
Soifun took her Zanpakuto and levitated it in the air, lightly tapping the end of the handle and sending it spinning in place. Hado number 58, Tenran, Orchid Sky.
A giant tornado-like blast generated from the Zanpakuto blew all the insects away, surprising Shino. Soifun used this opportunity to flash step to him and slam her elbow into his back, knocking him out.
Take this!
Cried a voice behind her. Soifun spun around to see Tenten unrolling a giant scroll, and a giant cloud of smoke appeared, engulfing her.
Soifun grabbed her Zanpakuto and spun it with both hands, deflecting the barrage of shurikens and kunais that flew towards her.
You idiots need to learn your place, said Soifun as she sped towards Tenten and slammed her foot into her stomach, a hint of venom in her tone. Tenten cried out as she went flying, slamming into a large rock that stood in her way.
Now!
Sighed Soifun as she cracked her knuckles.
Who's left?
I suppose that's me, sighed a voice on her right. Soifun turned her head to see a guy with long jet black hair tied into a spiky ponytail staring at her with an almost lazy look in his eyes.
My name's Shikamaru Nara, he yawned.
Pleased to meet you. He slowly clasped his hands together and crouched down on one knee. Anyway, I don't want to get yelled at by the Hokage, so if you're gonna knock me out, then do it quickly.
Shadow Possession Jutsu.
Soifun's eyes narrowed as a thin line of shadow emerged from Shikamaru's own shadow, touching and blending in with the surrounding shadows around him. So, this is the Shadow Possession Jutsu, said Soifun to herself as she looked around her. She suddenly jumped into the air as multiple shadows in the form of sharp needles shot out at her from her surrounding shadows. What a troublesome ability, commented Soifun as she flashes stepped away before one of the shadows could reach her.
Shut up and get caught already, sighed Shikamaru. Anyway, you're right. My Shadow Possession Jutsu allows me to use my surrounding shadows in order to bind or attack my opponents.
This particular jutsu is called the Shadow Sewing Jutsu. This allows me to use the shadows around me as weapon in order to attack my opponents if you haven't noticed already.
Why is he talking so much?
Wondered Soifun as she dodged the shadow needles.
He doesn't seem like that type, and yet it sounds like... Wait, is he Dash? Leaf Hurricane. Crap.
Soifun spun around and Flash stepped away, barely dodging Lee as his leg brushed her cloak.
This guy. He's smarter than I thought.
He seems lazy, but he's pretty strong, and definitely smart. Soifun grabbed Lee's leg and threw him at Shikamaru, but he simply used one of his shadow needles to grab Lee and gently place him on the ground.
Thanks, Shikamaru-kun,
said Lee as he brushed his jacket off. Shikamaru's eyes widened as he noticed Soifun had disappeared.
Crap.
I take my eyes off of her for 1 second and dash. His eyes suddenly rolled towards the back of his head as he blacked out, Soifun standing behind him. She quickly dropped down on the ground and swept at Lee's legs, tripping him. Grabbing him by the arm, Soifun swiftly dispatched him with a blow to his neck. Stupid kids, she said quietly as she walked back to where Ichigo and Naruto were standing. Naruto silently walked over to the defeated ninjas and placed his hands on the conscious ones, using Hakufuku to put them to sleep before healing the group of ninjas. I'm sorry, guys, but I can't let you interfere, he said. He suddenly glanced behind him out of the corner of his eyes as three figures appeared behind Ichigo and Soifun. The three figures were Sasuke, Sakura, and another pale figure with black hair and a dark gray shirt and matching pants. Ichigo glanced at the figures and turned to look at Naruto. "I'll take care of these three, Menma." Naruto nodded. "Don't kill them, though, they're only trying to defend Konoha. Anyway, once you beat them, we have to leave." "I know," replied Ichigo quietly as he reached for his Zanpakuto. He held it out in front of him as he stared coolly at the three figures. "So the guy in the center must be Sasuke, and that girl must be Sakura. So, does your huge sword actually serve a purpose, or are you just compensating for something?" asked the third figure with a smile, which Naruto noted to be even more fake than Aizen's, on his face. Ichigo blinked. "Ha? I'm sorry," apologized the figure with a smile. "Maybe I should have been clearer. I meant to ask, do you have dick? Ha?" Ichigo's face turned bright red as Soifun and Naruto struggled not to laugh out loud. "What the hell kind of threat was that, you idiot?" he yelled, a comical scowl on his face. "You were supposed to say, stop right there, or, take one step and you're dead, not, do you have a dick?" The figure blinked, looking genuinely confused. "Did I say something wrong?" "It's okay if you don't have anything between your legs, you know," Ichigo growled, seriously pissed off as of now. "What's your name?" he asked, pointing his Zanpakuto at the pale figure. "I want to know whose ass I'm about to kick first." "Who, me?" asked Sai, pointing to himself. "My name is Sai." "It's nice to meet you, Sai, huh?" grinned Ichigo. "Well, I'm Ichigo Kurosaki. It's Dash." His eyes suddenly widened in surprise as he raised his blade, forced to block Sasuke's attack as he used both of his swords to slash at him. "This is Dash," said Ichigo in a surprised tone. "You're channeling lightning through your sword." "This is surprising," said Sasuke in a calm tone. "You shouldn't have been able to block my swords with a normal weapon. And since when did you assume that this was a normal weapon?" said Ichigo as his blade struggled with Sasuke's. "What's your real name, intruder?" asked Sasuke, a calm look on his face. "Shay." Ichigo narrowed his eyes as he observed Sasuke. "This guy reminds me of Yuryu. How annoying. I've been using my real name this whole time." "Then I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Sasuke Uchiha," said Sasuke as he forced Ichigo back an inch. "If your group is going to fight, then my team and I are going to have to take you three out." Ichigo grinned as he pushed Sasuke back with his sword. "It ain't gonna be that easy, pal." He then tucked his Zanpakuto between his arms, and his eyes began to turn blue-white as his Zanpakuto began to glow. Protect, Zangetsu, Slaying Moon. Chapter 12, The Deathberry's Power, Ichigo vs Team Kakashi. Konoha, the Shinobi World. Tucking his Zanpakuto between his arms, Ichigo's eyes began to turn blue-white as his Zanpakuto began to glow. Sakura stared at Ichigo confusedly, and she unconsciously wiped the sweat off of her forehead with her arm. "What's this feeling that I'm getting?" she wondered inwardly. Ichigo narrowed his eyes, and the very air itself seemed to scream out as he slashed out at Sasuke with his Zanpakuto. "Protect, Zangetsu, Slaying Moon!" roared Ichigo. Thud! Sasuke jumped out of the cloud of dust that filled the air, barely avoiding the almost fatal attack. He glanced up with his eyes and wiped a tiny trickle of blood from his forehead with his finger, a surprised look on his face. Sasuke stared hard at Ichigo, and to his surprise, as well as Sakura and Sai's, he suddenly noticed Ichigo's transformed sword. Ichigo's sword now resembled an oversized kyber knife with a sleek black blade with a silver edge. It had no tsuba or hilt but a cloth-wrapped tang that Ichigo held onto, and the entire sword was almost as tall as Ichigo himself was. Something. Sasuke grimaced slightly as he felt something churn inside of him. Something's definitely wrong here. He suddenly widened his eyes as he stared intently at Ichigo, his onyx eyes turning red as three spinning tomos appeared in his eyes. Sharingan! Impossible! Sasuke unconsciously stepped back as he stared at Ichigo with an expression of utter disbelief and horror on his face. This guy and his two friends are somehow suppressing most of their powers, and they're already at a Kage level. No dash, that's only concerning the woman. These two guys, they're easily at a level of a bijou. Ichigo, noticing the shocked expression on Sasuke's face, straightened up and rested the blade of Zangetsu on his shoulder.
You scared? He asked casually. Well, you should be, because I'm going to kick all of your asses.
Ichigo then built up a large amount of Ryatsu in his blade and swung it at Sasuke as his two team members.
Getsuga Tensho, Moonfang Heaven Piercer!
Shouted Ichigo as he swung his blade at them.
Sasuke and the others looked on in shock as a large wave of blue energy in the form of a crescent generated from the tip of the intruder's blade and sped at them.
They were barely able to dodge the attack, and Sakura cried out as she was hit by the impact of the blast and sent flying into a tree. So, your sword actually does serve a purpose, remarked Sai cheerfully as he landed on a branch of a tree in a crouch. Ichigo's eye twitched as he heard this, and Naruto, seeing this, walked over to him and laid a hand on his shoulder.
Calm down, Ichigo, he said. Also, watch where you fire those things, will you? If you aim it the wrong way, you could end up eventually destroying Konoha. Ichigo nodded, still facing forward. Got it, Menma. My bad.
He suddenly stopped talking and blinked as he noticed a sudden spike in Sasuke's chakra levels.
What the hell?
He turned his head to face Sasuke, and his jaw dropped as the cloud of dust cleared up. Sasuke now had dark gray skin along with a black 4-point star mark between his eyes and across the bridge of his nose, and his hair was now waist-length in the same style. His sclerae and irides were now black and yellow, respectively, and he now had claw-like nails as well as unusual blue lips. What surprised Ichigo the most, however, was the fact that Sasuke had now grown large webbed hand-shaped wings on his back. Ichigo closed his mouth and grinned.
Well, I thought that I had seen everything, but this is...
Naruto stared at Sasuke in shock as he took a step forward.
This is the second stage of his curse mark.
It feels so different from last time, however, it feels as if the corruptive influence of the curse mark is gone, unlike before. Sakura glanced at Sasuke before biting her thumb and wiping the tiny trickle of blood across the palm of her right hand.
Summoning Jutsu! She cried, slamming her hand on the ground. A giant cloud of smoke appeared, enveloping the whole entire area.
Once the smoke cleared up, Ichigo saw a giant slug in place of the smoke with Sakura standing by its side. Katsuya-sama, please take my friends away from this area and heal them while my teammates and I battle the intruders.
Understood,
said Katsuyu as it split up into hundreds of small versions of itself. Reaching into her top, Sakura pulled out a small scroll which she held out and unrolled.
Quickly executing 3 hand seals, Sakura grabbed 2 large single-bladed kusarigamas that appeared from the cloud of smoke and held them out by her side.
Ready, she stated as she stared at Ichigo. My team and I won't hold back, intruder, stated Sasuke as he stared at Ichigo. Ichigo raised his blade and held it out in front of him.
Bring it on, Sasuke,
he said, rushing at Sasuke with his sword held out at his side. Ducking in order to avoid Ichigo's slash, Sasuke spun the sword in his left hand and stabbed up with it, aiming to stab Ichigo through his chin. Ichigo saw this coming and easily avoided it, but his eyes slightly widened in surprise as Sasuke used this moment to spin around and slash at Ichigo's back with both swords, his moves almost reminiscent of a dance. This guy's skilled with swords, said Ichigo to himself, mildly surprised. He quickly used Flash Step to get out of the sword's range, but Sasuke, having expected this, simply teleported to Ichigo's side and kicked at him. Ichigo grabbed Sasuke's leg and threw him against a tree, but Sasuke used his wings to balance himself in midair and pushed himself off of the tree with his legs, delivering a series of quick stabs at him with both swords. Ichigo dodged the attacks with little effort, but he grimaced slightly as one of Sasuke's blades sliced off a single strand of his hair.
Okay, this is getting a little annoying, he said as he sighed inwardly.
Slapping Sasuke's blade aside, Ichigo used Flash Step to appear above Sasuke, grabbing the cloth attached to his Zanpakuto and spinning his sword above his head.
Getsuga no Kama, the Moonfang's Bite!
Ichigo yelled out as he channeled his Ryatsu into his blade. Instead of using a normal Getsuga Tensho, however, Ichigo used a version of that in order to amplify the power of his deadly darts technique that he had learned from his inner hollow. As he repeatedly threw his Zanpakuto at Sasuke, the energy-infused blade created a massive energy blast every time it made physical contact with an object, much to the surprise of Soifun and the Konoha nin. Sasuke, surprised by this sudden move, barely managed to dodge the attacks as Ichigo threw his Zanpakuto at him, yanked it back, and repeat.
Sakura, now!
Said Sasuke as he glanced at his female teammate.
Kai!
Shouted Sakura as she made a hand seal with her hands. If this guy can fight this well against Sasuke-kun, then I need to go all out from the beginning.
Ichigo looked at Sakura with a surprised look on his face as a violet rhombus mark appeared in the middle of her forehead. The mark then extended and spread across Sakura's face in the form of lines.
White strength seal, whispered Sakura as she glared at Ichigo.
Now I'm ready.
Rushing at Ichigo, Sakura jumped into the air and drew her fist back.
Shinaro! She shouted as her fist slammed into the spot where Ichigo was just at a second ago.
Ichigo wobbled and struggled not to fall as the entire area basically exploded from the force of the punch.
What's up with this girl's strength?
Screamed Ichigo comically as he sped away as fast as possible from Sakura.
Suiton, snake's mouth,
said Sakura as he ran towards Ichigo.
A giant dragon-like snake made of water suddenly rose up from the rubble beside Sakura, charging at Ichigo with a loud roar.
Ichigo silently swore to himself as he cut and sliced the jutsu, but the giant water snake rose up and twisted from side to side as it opened its gaping mouth to swallow Ichigo. Ichigo narrowed his eyes and channeled his Ryatsu through his blade, finally slashing at the dragon.
Getsuga Tensho!
He shouted as he slashed at the snake's mouth.
The snake continued to charge through the attack, but it was finally overwhelmed by Ichigo's attack and died down with a roar.
Exploding and raining the area below with a short downfall of lifted her head and stared hard at him.
Precise chakra control. This isn't anything that releasing my Ein seal did. Sakura, watch out!
Shouted Sasuke as he stared behind her with wide eyes.
What? Sakura looked behind her, only to be cut down by Ichigo. Ugh! What?
Ichigo looked down at the fallen Konoha shinobi as he laid the edge of his blade on his shoulder. One down, he said dully as he looked up at Sasuke.
Now.
His eyes suddenly widened as he leaped back away from Sakura as she came up and tried to deliver an uppercut.
What the hell?
I know that I cut her down for sure, but she's still standing.
Wait a second. Her wounds, gone. But how is this possible?
You're a hard one to take down, remarked Ichigo as he stared down at her. This is the power of my white strength seal, explained Sakura as she stared up at him. It basically gives me an indestructible body for a brief period of time. All of your attacks are useless as long as this jutsu is activated.
Oh really?
Said Ichigo quietly.
Well then.
He lifted his blade to release a Getsuga Tensho, but he instead spun it around and used the flat of the blade to block Sai as he appeared behind him, his foot slamming into Ichigo's blade. Sai executed a couple of hand seals and brought his hands together, his index fingers crossing diagonally to form an X. Sai narrowed his eyes as he spun around and used his legs to lock Ichigo's arm and blade.
Futon, raging wind.
A powerful gust of wind generated from Sai's hand, and Ichigo swore and yanked his hand, using his brute strength to position his sword as a shield. The gust of wind slammed into the flat of Ichigo's blade, and he went flying into a tree from the sheer force of the attack. Using his legs, Ichigo landed on the trunk of the tree in a crouch and pushed himself off of it, surprising Sai as he swung at him with his Zanpakuto. That was a good try, said Ichigo as Sai quickly drew his own tipless tanto and blocked his attack.
Come to think of it, I said that I was gonna kick your ass first, didn't I?
You sure did, you dickless pansy, smiled Sai. Ichigo narrowed his eyes as he glared him.
Why you little dash? He stopped talking as he noticed Sasuke leaping into the sky. Summoning jutsu,
said Sasuke in mid-flip, his hands outstretched. With a poof, a large brown hawk appeared in the sky, Sasuke landing on it as he glanced at Ichigo out of the corner of his eyes. As the hawk screeched and sped towards Ichigo, Sasuke whipped out 10 shurikens from seal on his arm and threw them at him in rapid succession. Using his blade to push Sai out of the way, Ichigo sliced at the hawk, nearly cutting the bird in half before it dissipated in time to save itself, and continued his slash even though it was hitting nothing but the air, blowing the shurikens away towards Sasuke with just his sheer brute strength. Ichigo quickly spun around instantaneously and blocked an attack from Sai, grinning as his blade scraped against Sai's.
How you doing, pansy? Sai, now.
Ichigo turned around in shock to see Sasuke standing below him, his swords in hand.
Looking back up at the other Sasuke, Ichigo's eyes widened as it disappeared into a cloud of smoke. What the hell?
Sai suddenly retreated, leaving Ichigo all alone as he landed on the ground, looking around to see what was going on.
This is it, intruder!
Shouted Sakura as she suddenly appeared above him, her kusarigamas spinning rapidly above her head.
Chidori, 1,000 birds!
Roared Sasuke as he ran toward him. He grabbed his wrist as he ran, and the lightning blue jutsu darkened and turned black, surprising Ichigo as well as Soifun. "That's Black Chidori," said Naruto in his head as he stared at it in shock. "Futon, vacuum serial waves!" shouted Sai as he took a deep breath, breathing out multiple blades of wind that sped towards Ichigo. "Take this!" shouted Sakura, slamming her Kuzarigamas down onto Ichigo. Ichigo looked around and closed his eyes, taking a deep breath as he lifted up his Zanpakuto and channeled his Getsuga Tensho into it. Opening his eyes, Ichigo slammed the blade into the ground, causing a giant blue sphere to emerge around him. "Getsuga Domu, Moonfong Dome." "What?" exclaimed Sasuke as he and his two teammates' attacks were repelled by the blue sphere of energy. "This is getting annoying," frowned Ichigo. Quickly dissipating the sphere, Ichigo quickly teleported to Sakura's side and slammed the end of Zangetsu's hilt into Sakura's back, hard. Sakura's eyes rolled up towards the back of her head as she fell down on the ground, unconscious. Sai tried to attack Ichigo with his Tanto, but Ichigo took a deep breath and swung his Zanpakuto at him. "Getsuga Tensho! Sakura!" Sai's eyes widened in shock as he fell down on the ground with a large gash across his chest and stomach. Ichigo glanced at Sasuke out of the corner of his eyes. "So, you used that lightning thingy of yours to soften the blow, huh? Good move." Soifun, who was watching the fight calmly with Naruto, turned to face him when she saw the blue sphere of Ryatsu surrounding Ichigo. "Naruto! What was that move that he used just now? I've never seen anything like it before." "Oh, that?" Naruto said from behind his mask. "That's Getsuga Domu, a defensive move that I helped him to develop after he had learned how to control his Ryatsu. He also developed the move Getsuga no Kama, which was the dart-like move that he used just a while ago. They're all basically variants of his Getsuga Tensho." "I see." Soifun turned back to face Ichigo as she watched him knock Sakura and Sai out. "He's grown tremendously in just the short time that he's been a Shinigami." Ichigo quickly spun around and slashed at Sasuke, who blocked the attack with his two wings. "That's an impressive form you have there, Sasuke," commented Ichigo as he stared at Sasuke's two wings. Sasuke glanced at his two unconscious partners and sighed. Wiping a small trickle of blood from his forehead, Sasuke quickly executed a couple of hand seals and slammed his hand on the ground. Summoning Jutsu. A giant cloud of smoke filled the air, and a moment later, in its place stood a giant white snake that towered above the trees along with two smaller white snakes which still stood as tall as the trees. The biggest snake looked down at Sasuke, who was standing next to it. "Sasuke-sama," it hissed in a surprisingly polite voice. "Aoda." Sasuke looked up at it. "Order the two others to take Sakura and Sai back to the village." Aoda nodded and hissed at the two other snakes with a strange whistling sound. After a moment, the two other snakes nodded and slithered off to fetch Sakura and Sai, while Aoda stayed by Sasuke's side. "You'll pay for hurting my comrades, you bastard," spat Sasuke angrily. Ichigo closed his eyes and pinched the bridge of his nose as he shook his head. "Isn't there any way that I could talk you out of this?" "Don't give me that pile of crap now after what you just did," said Sasuke. He stretched out his hand and motioned for Ichigo to approach him. "Come on. Bring it." Sighing exasperatedly, Ichigo took his sword and held it out in front of him, gripping it with both hands as he stared hard at Sasuke. "Very well then. If you're going to keep fighting, then I have no choice but to use it." Sasuke tilted his head as he looked at Ichigo inquiringly, but as he opened his mouth, Ichigo suddenly seemed to explode with energy as Sasuke stared at him with a shocked look on his face. "Bankai!" yelled Ichigo. Thud! The entire area seemed to explode in a bright blue light as a column of wind resembling a mini tornado surrounded Ichigo. "What is this?" said Sasuke to himself in utter shock. "This power." When the column of wind dissipated, Ichigo became visible again, his attire and blade having changed appearances. Ichigo was now wearing a black long-sleeved ankle-length black shihakusho with red lining closed at his chest as well as ragged ends. In his hand was a black dato with a four-pronged crossguard bent out in the form of a manji. "Tensa Zangetsu, heavenly chain-slaying moon," Ichigo said, pointing his sword at the Uchiha clansman, as if he were daring him to attack. "This guy." Sasuke narrowed his eyes as he stared at Ichigo. "I can tell that his blade is compressing his power, but despite that, his power has increased by over tenfold. Aoda, now!" ordered Sasuke as he lunged at Ichigo, his swords flashing as he slashed at him. "Yes, Sasuke-sama." hissed Aoda as he lunged at Ichigo as well. Shay! Ichigo sighed and slowly lifted his blade into the air, stabbing down with it as Sasuke and Aoda lunged at him. Getsuga Domu! The enhanced Getsuga Domu not only repelled both Sasuke and Aoda but caused a massive shockwave that destroyed the ground surrounding Ichigo. Sasuke grimaced as he was blown back and crashed through multiple trees and rocks, forced out of his curse Mark II state while his summon Aoda was forcibly dissipated. Damn it! Sasuke widened his eyes as the three tomos spread out and turned into three red intercepting ellipses with a three-bladed shuriken in the middle of them. Quickly balancing himself in mid-air, he teleported from his current spot to where Ichigo was at. Amaterasu, heavenly illumination! Whispered Sasuke. Ichigo's eyes widened as Sasuke's left eye began to bleed, and Soifun swore silently to herself as she saw this. Damn it! It's Amaterasu! I have to dash. She opened her mouth to warn Ichigo, but she was too late as a small spark of black flame appeared directly in front of Ichigo's face. Ichigo grinned, surprising Sasuke. Whatever he's grinning about, he still won't be able to dodge my Amaterasu. Impossible, whispered Sasuke in shock. How did you? Ichigo grinned from his spot behind Sasuke, his blade pressing against the Uchiha's throat. It was nothing really, he chuckled. My Bankai increases my speed tremendously. Of course, if you think I'm too slow for you, I could always go even faster than this. Naruto turned to a rather surprised Soifun. He already knows about the Mangekyo Sharingan and Amaterasu, you don't have to worry about warning him, he said, to which the second division captain nodded. Sasuke narrowed his eyes as he clenched his teeth. Don't underestimate the Shinobi of Konoha or the Uchiha, you damned fool. Susanoo. Ichigo cursed and leaped back as a large reddish-orange skeletal figure manifested around Sasuke, grabbing at Ichigo with three of its four large skeletal hands. Several layers of armor that was the same color as the skeletal figure, which resembled some sort of samurai's armor, covered the figure while a mouth-like opening formed on the armor giving off a beak-like shape. There were also what appeared to be energy swords the same color as the creature that were forming in three of the creature's hands. More concerning, however, was the sword covered in Amaterasu flames forming in the creature's fourth hand. What the hell? Yelled Ichigo as he fended off the creature's three normal blades. What is this thing? This is my Susanoo, explained Sasuke with a menacing look in his eyes. It's the Mangekyo Sharingan's strongest ability. Now. Sasuke raised his Kodachi into the air, he had already sheathed his Wakizashi, with his Susanoo did the same. Die! He yelled as he slashed down at Ichigo with his sword. Sasuke looked on in shock as Ichigo, who had already pushed the other swords away, effortlessly blocked the attack with Tensa Zangetsu before suddenly disappearing and reappearing behind Sasuke. Ichigo had sliced through Susanoo's arm like it was a piece of paper, and the arm dispersed as it landed on the ground with a loud thud. Quickly spinning around, Ichigo grabbed his Zanpakuto with both hands as he channeled his Getsuga Tensho into the tip of his blade, compressing it. Lifting it up and pointing it at Sasuke, Ichigo narrowed his eyes as his Zanpakuto began to emit a black aura. Tensho no Yari, the Heaven Piercer's Spear! Cried Ichigo as he black-red spear-shaped beam shot out of the tip of Tensa Zangetsu. Sasuke stared ahead at the forest that lay in front of him with a dumbfounded look on his face as Susanoo dispersed, completely obliterated by the attack. Impossible. He whispered. It's over, said Ichigo calmly as he appeared in front of Sasuke, slashing the right side of his chest. Sasuke immediately fell to the ground as Ichigo resealed his Zanpakuto just as Naruto approached the Uchiha. Sorry about this, Sasuke, but we can't let you continue to fight on like this. Hakufoku. Sasuke's eyes slowly closed shut as he stared at Naruto, a calm look spreading across his face. Don't worry, added Ichigo as he turned to glance at a worried Naruto. It was a non-lethal attack. Thanks, said Naruto as he stared at his fallen former comrade. Sorry about having to have knocked out your friends, though, said Ichigo as he sheathed his sealed Zanpakuto. Naruto waved this off as he kept staring at Sasuke. It wasn't your fault, Ichigo, so it's no big deal, he replied as he knelt down next to a now unconscious Sasuke. Let me just heal him really quick, said Naruto as he placed his hands over his unconscious friend. After 2 or 3 minutes, Naruto stood up, motioning for Ichigo and Soifun to follow his lead. Just as they were about to take off, however, Naruto stopped abruptly, motioning for his two comrades to do the same. This chakra. I can sense them as well, said Ichigo as he stared off into the direction that the sources of chakra were coming from.
It's more of your friends, isn't it? Naruto nodded.
Yeah, well, I really don't want to knock any more of your friends up, sighed Ichigo.
What are we gonna do about them? Let's withdraw, replied Naruto. We don't have any more time to waste.
Just as he said this, however, the group of shinobis arrived at the scene.
Naruto narrowed his eyes as he studied the group. Kakashi-sensei. Asuma-sensei. Kurenai-sensei. Super Bushy-Brows-sensei. Arrow-Sennin. Kakashi took a step forward and pointed his kunai at the group. You need to stand down.
Don't make us have to force you to do so, he said as he lifted his headband up, revealing his Sharingan.
Soifun stepped in at this moment.
We don't have any more time to deal with the likes of you guys, so dash. You can drop the royal family charade now, Suifong, sighed Jiraiya as he rubbed the back of his head.
It's useless to try that in front of me.
Ichigo looked surprised by this, while Naruto, on the other hand, had expected for something like this to happen.
Soifun sighed and pulled down her hood, taking off her mask as well in the process. Very well then. Kakashi's eyes widened in shock when he saw her face. She hasn't aged even after 10 years. Soifun stared at Jiraiya with a hard look in her eyes. So, you actually figured it out.
Jiraiya-chan, she said in a mocking tone.
Chapter 13, The Next Move.
Disclaimer, still applies.
Konoha, the Shinobi World.
Well, Jiraiya-chan, I'm honestly surprised to see that you only came with Kakashi-chan and a few other small fries this time around, said Soifun as she faced her two old acquaintances.
Jiraiya scoffed smugly out loud at this.
These small fries are more than enough to take you down, Suifong, he replied. Soifun narrowed her eyes at this, before flashing a smirk. I would have thought that you would have known better than that after I kicked you and the other two Sanin's asses the last time we crossed paths,
but it seems that some people will never learn. Ichigo blinked as he turned to face Naruto. Wait, am I missing something here?
Soifun had crossed paths with the three legendary Sannin, including Jiraiya, over 20 years ago, and had also fought Kakashi around 10 years ago, explained Naruto softly.
Naturally, Soifun kicked their asses when she fought them, but because they started the battle in order to arrest her and were not her targets at the time, and since she is forbidden to kill humans needlessly, even those who are shinobi, she had to spare them. Ichigo turned back to face Jiraiya and the others. I see. Suifong, the shinobi that all shinobis fear, said Kakashi as he stepped forward. You're wanted for the assassinations for several high-ranking shinobis throughout the hidden villages, including at least 3 Kages. You've also been placed on the bingo book of every nation, even those outside of the allied lands. You have a lot of nerve showing up here in Konoha, growled Asuma as he stared hard at Soifun. Soifun gave Asuma a dangerous grin. And you guys have a lot nerve for trying to confront me at your current levels, she retorted. We'll find a way to defeat you and your team if that's what it takes to stop you from harming Konoha, replied Jiraiya calmly. Prepare to be defeated, Suifong, Guy said as he got into his fighting stance. Unsheathing her Zanpakuto, Soifun stabbed it into the ground, cracking her knuckles as she prepared to fight. I'd like to see you try. Just as Soifun finished her sentence, Naruto Flash stepped in between the two groups while holding his right fist, which was closed except his index and middle fingers, in front of the shinobi. Bakuto number 1, Sai, restrain, he said blankly. Jiraiya and the others' eyes widened in shock as they were suddenly restrained by an invisible force which caused them to fall to the ground. What is this? Exclaimed Kakashi as he tried to free himself from the invisible bindings. My name is Menma, said Naruto as he introduced himself. Please excuse my colleague for her rudeness, but she tends to get a little cocky when speaking with other shinobis. Ignoring the angry glare Soifun was giving him, Naruto continued. We have no intention of laying a finger on Konoha, but we're on a mission of our own and have no time for any delays, so as long as you stay out of our way, we'll leave you in the village in peace. Now, please excuse us. It's time to go, said Naruto as he turned to Soifun and Ichigo. And with that, Naruto and the others Flash stepped away, leaving the Jiraiya and the others restrained. A few minutes later, the trio escaped by breaking through an unguarded part of Konoha's wall. Looking back at the spot where they had left Jiraiya and the others restrained, Naruto snapped his fingers, releasing the Kido and freeing them. Now, onto Canopy Bridge, said Soifun, and the group made a beeline for Canopy Bridge. Canopy Bridge, the land of grass. A day later, Naruto and the others finally arrived at Canopy Bridge, which was a large stone white and red bridge with an arch on the bottom of it.
Toshiro and Rinji were already waiting for Naruto and his group as they had arrived a while earlier. "Wow, you guys got here early," said Naruto as the group stopped in front of the two. "The two Jinchurikis from the hidden cloud village are already within the confines of the village, and the only Jinchuriki that gave us any trouble was the missing Nin Utakata, the Jinchuriki of the Rokubi." Soifun stepped forward at this moment.
"So where is he right now then?"
"A small clan of shinobis owed Utakata a favor, so he's currently staying with them at their main stronghold," he explained. "It's not that far from the bridge, so Abarai and I came here right after we were done with him."
"I see."
Naruto sighed as he glanced up at the sky.
"So are they all safe?"
Toshiro nodded. "Other than the Sanbai Jinchuriki, the others are out of danger for the moment. And we'll deal with that problem soon enough," Naruto said.
"So, what's our next move?" asked Ichigo.
Soifun tapped the hilt of her Zanpakuto as she thought about this. "The intel we received from my contacts in Konoha points to the fact that the Akatsuki plans to capture the Ichibi Jinchuriki named Gaara, the fifth and current Kazekage."
Ichigo looked surprised by this. "Really? Naruto, didn't you tell me about this Gaara person?"
"Yes, I did. If you need a refresher, he's a fellow Jinchuriki, and he's around my age," said Naruto before Soifun entered the conversation again.
"In addition, because a Kage rarely leaves their village in times of peace, the Akatsuki's only option would be to infiltrate the hidden sand village and capture him there."
Ichigo, Toshiro, and Rinji looked shocked.
"Would the Akatsuki really even have the nerve to attack one of the 5 great shinobi villages?" asked Rinji.
Naruto sighed.
"I guess we'll find out when we get there."
Signaling for the others to follow him, Naruto Flash stepped away, the rest of the group following him as they headed for the hidden sand village. The Hokage's office, Konoha, the shinobi world, Sasuke, as well as the rest of Team Kakashi, Team Asuma, Team Kurenai, and Team Guy, were explaining to Tsunade what had just happened a while back and how they had gotten their asses handed to them by Soifun and her team.
Tsunade folded her hands and rested her chin on them as she thought about what Sasuke had just said. "So let me get this straight.
Suifeng arrived in Konoha with 2 teammates, if that was what they are, and defeated the 9 of you." He turns to look at teams Asuma, Kurenai, and Guy. "While one of her teammates defeated your team, she then turns to Team Kakashi, with almost no effort at all?"
Sasuke nodded.
"That's right," he said, a hint of anger in his voice, though his anger was less because of his losing to the Ichigo guy and more due to the fact that his friends had gotten hurt and he couldn't
stop it at the time.
Tsunade narrowed her eyes.
"Ichigo Kurosaki.
Forget about Shikamaru and the others, hell, forget about Suifeng returning.
But single-handedly defeating Sasuke, Sakura, and Sai, even with Sasuke's restrictions, all at once without so getting much as a scratch on himself? That's impossible.
And then there's this Menma character.
We don't even know what he can do and he's supposedly at this Ichigo's level? Just what are you up to now? Suifeng, do you mind if I ask something that's been on my mind lately?" asked Sasuke. Tsunade offered thoughts and looked up at the young Uchiha. "Go ahead.
Just who is this Suifeng person?"
he asked.
"I know that I've definitely heard her name before, but that's all I know." Asuma smirked, his arms crossed as he leaned against the wall. "I forgot that you and Niji just became Jonin a few weeks ago."
"Otherwise, you wouldn't have asked that question." As Sasuke opened his mouth to retort, Tsunade raised her hand, stopping him.
"In any case, Suifeng reappearing in Konoha is a possible threat to us, so I think it might be a good time to answer your question, Sasuke."
The Hokage took a deep breath before continuing. "Suifeng is known as the shinobi that all shinobis fear.
Everyone that is at least a Jonin rank has heard of her at one point or another in their lives. The first important thing you should know is that Suifeng's origins are a completely mystery. No one knows who really she is or where she is from, despite the fact that we've been searching for quite a while now."
Shikamaru raised an eyebrow at this. "Has anyone outside of Konoha even tried to find out what her origins are?" Kurenai stepped in at this moment, answering Shikamaru's question in Tsunade's stead.
"Countless investigations on Suifeng have been conducted by the 5 great shinobi nations to this very day," she stated. "Actually, it's the only time when the 5 great shinobi villages will actually cooperate on something on a regular basis.
We've always come up empty-handed, however."
Tsunade frowned, regaining everyone's attention by cracking her knuckles very loudly.
When everyone's focus was turned back to her, Tsunade smiled. "There we go.
She turned to look at Sasuke. Anyways, as I was saying, what we do know is that the first accounts regarding Suifeng come from before the founding of the Shinobi villages. Sasuke, along with his peers, looked shocked by this. So, is this Suifeng person immortal? Asked Hinata timidly from behind Shikamaru. Tsunade sighed, slowly shaking her head. I wish I knew, Hinata. I wish I knew. After a few moments of silence, Tsunade continued. Suifeng has not only lived for an extraordinary long time, but she is, as you Tsunade nodded at Sasuke and some of the others from the Konoha 12 have found out, unbelievably skilled. Her speed, taijutsu, and kenjutsu skills are way beyond what any normal shinobi is capable of, and these abilities, along with her arsenal of unusual jutsus, her overwhelming power, and her mastery of stealth and assassination techniques, means that most inexperienced shinobis would die before they comrade even knew what was happening. Hinata and the others who had fought against Suifeng bowed their heads in embarrassment as they remembered how easily Suifeng had taken them out. But, despite her incredible powers, Suifeng has actually killed far less people than some people might think. She will only kill people who she often refers to as her targets, which suggests that she is probably taking orders from a superior, although just who that person or organization might be is also a mystery. Tsunade-sama. Sakura raised her hand midway, catching her master's attention. Who has this Suifeng person killed so far, if you don't mind me asking? Tsunade nodded. It's fine, Sakura. One of Suifeng's first known victims was Taijima Uchiha, the leader of the Uchiha clan before Madara Uchiha. He was also Madara and his brother Izuna's father, and rumors say that Madara had actually witnessed the death of his father at the hands of Suifeng, and as a result, he was able to awaken his Mangekyo Sharingan. Sasuke narrowed his eyes at the mention of Madara, having remembered the things Itachi had told him regarding Madara shortly before the latter's death. Now, let's see. Tsunade rubbed her chin as she thought about some other victims of Suifeng. Some of her other known victims included the Gold and Silver Brothers of the Hidden Cloud, and at least 3 members of the strongest generation of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the Hidden Mist, and many others, including 3 Kages, the first Tsuchikage, the second Kazekage, and the third Mizukage. OST scene ends. Sakura's eyes widened in shock. And no way. 3 Kages? Tsunade nodded. It's surprising, isn't it? She was also able to defeat the 3 legendary Sannin, by which I mean Jiraiya, Orochimaru, and myself. She fought all of us at once, but even then we were no match for her, as much as I hate to admit it. She also defeated 2 of the other current Kages, Inoki and Kakashi, as well as several other prominent ninjas single-handedly. However, those ninjas, unlike the others, were all spared as they were not Suifeng's targets at the time. Everyone in the room except for the Konoha 12's elders were absolutely shocked by this. Tsunade narrowed her eyes as she said one last thing. The thing that I find unusual this time is that Suifeng is now a part of a team, as she has always fought alone all this time. You must proceed with caution if you should encounter them again. She sighs. If these teammates of hers are even stronger than Suifeng, then the situation is even more grim than it had ever been. At this point, Jiraiya entered the room through the window, glancing around the room as he landed on the floor in a crouch. It's even worse than you think, Tsunade, he said right off the bat. Kakashi narrowed his eyes as he stared at Jiraiya. What do you mean, Jiraiya-sama? My spies in the Land of Grass have just reported that there are 2 more unidentified shinobi that have rendezvoused with Suifeng and her team near Canopy Bridge. So does this mean that there are now 5 shinobi, including this Suifeng, that we have to deal with? Asked Sai. Jiraiya nodded, confirming Sai's rhetorical question. You're right. He turned to Tsunade, a grim look on his face. So, Tsunade, what now? Asked Sasuke, unintentionally finishing Jiraiya's sentence. Tsunade sighed as she closed her eyes. I don't know, but it doesn't change the fact that she must be stopped. Kakashi narrowed his visible eye at this. Does she? What if this Menma person was telling the truth and they have no intention of harming Konoha? He thought to himself as he got a sinking feeling welling in his gut. Chapter 14, The Artists. A few miles outside of the Hidden Sand Village, the Shinobi World, current time. As Suifeng and her group approached the Hidden Sand Village, the 2nd Division captain glanced to her left, and then to her right. We're finally here, she said to herself as she stared at the village that lay ahead of them. Skidding to a halt, Suifeng raised her hand, signaling for the others to stop. A confused Naruto walked up to her, tapping her on the shoulder.
What are you talking about, Soifun?
He asked in a puzzled voice.
We're not even in the outskirts of the village, we still have at least half an hour to go.
Toshiro frowned as he glanced at the desert that they were in.
Can't you sense them, Naruto? He asked as he glanced at the distant village. Naruto was startled when he suddenly understood what the 10th Division captain was talking about. Damn it.
So, they've already captured Gaara.
He whispered angrily. Unforgivable. I'll fucking beat the shit out of those two.
Grabbing his Zanpakuto's hilt tightly, Naruto glared at the two distant figures that were slowly approaching the group. A long blonde-haired male of average height with slanted blue eyes and a half ponytail narrowed his eyes as he noticed a group of masked figures in the distance.
Sasori no Dana,
he said cautiously as he kept his eyes on the group.
Yeah, I know, replied his partner in a low and hoarse voice.
He, unlike his partner, was a short and hunched male with black eyes and a ragged mask that he wore over his mouth.
Stay on guard, Deidara.
I don't understand why I can't sense any chakra from any of them, but it's obvious that they're extremely powerful. This is a good opportunity to test my artistic skills, stated Deidara, rubbing his chin as he stared blankly ahead of them in deep thought. After a few seconds, he glanced back at the defeated Gaara, who was unconscious and wrapped up in the tail of Deidara's giant clay bird. That Ichibi's Jinchuriki was a tough one, but I didn't have a chance to show off as much of my artistic skills as I would have liked to have.
Sasori growled in annoyance.
Shut up, he ordered as the group ahead of them grew closer.
Get ready, they're here. Who might you five be? Asked Sasori in a polite yet annoyed voice.
I wasn't informed that Konoha would already be sending reinforcements over to rescue the Jinchuriki.
You weren't informed? Asked Soifun.
So, you did have a spy in the hidden sand village after all.
Most likely that sleeper cell guy within the council. Sasori seemed surprised by this, but his expression remained blank. How could she have known about Yura? He wondered. So, I'm guessing that you kids are here to rescue the Jinchuriki. Well, I'm afraid that that's impossible. Growling behind his mask, Naruto unsheathed his Zanpakuto, stabbing the blade into the ground and turning to Soifun. There's no rules against killing these guys, right?
Soifun grinned from behind her mask as she stared at the two figures.
Since we're here to kill them, no, there isn't.
Wait, scratch that.
Naruto turned to face the two Akatsuki members. I'm not gonna just kill them. I'm gonna beat the living shit out of them, and then I'll kill them. Deidara narrowed his eyes.
Oh? Turning to his partner, the blonde smirked as he opened and closed his only hand multiple times.
Did you hear that, Sasori no Dana?
This masked artless kid thinks that he can take us on,
Well then, let's see if you have what it takes, kid. Be careful, Deidara. Growled Sasori.
What did I tell you before?
Ha!
Scoffed the blonde Akatsuki member. Stuffing his hand inside his side pouches, Deidara fed his second mouth, which was the mouth on the palm of his hand, some explosive clay.
Now!
Grinning at Naruto, he jumped on his giant clay bird, withdrawing his hand from his pouch and revealing it to Naruto and the others, much to their surprise.
Well?
Deidara stared down at his hand as it spat out a glob of chewed-up clay. Closing his hand, the blonde Akatsuki member molded and fashioned the glob of clay into 5 small birds with 4 wings in just a couple of seconds.
Let's get going, shall we? Behold, my art.
Throwing the 5 clay birds into the air, Deidara made a hand seal with his only hand, and a large cloud of smoke enveloped the 5 clay birds. When the smoke dissipated, Naruto and the others saw that the 5 small clay objects had grown into 5 lean and skinny birds which had obviously been fashioned for speed in place of destructive power. Narrowing his eyes, Renji slowly drew his Zanpakuto from its sheath, shifting his feet as he prepared to attack Deidara.
Naruto. Yeah.
Glancing sideways at Soifun, Naruto signaled for her and the others minus Renji to direct their attention onto him.
Renji and I will handle the blondie, he stated as he yanked his Zanpakuto from the ground. You, Ichigo, and Toshiro handle puppet boy over there.
Sasori looked shocked by this, and Naruto grinned at him from behind his mask.
Yeah, we know that you're inside a puppet and have many more besides that. Don't be so surprised.
Turning back to Deidara, he suddenly seemed to disappear as he used Flash Step, appearing in front of the shocked Akatsuki member and slashing at him.
Bending backwards, Deidara was barely able to avoid the blade as it passed a millimeter over his nose. Shay! He's fast.
Glancing at his clay birds, he beckoned to them with his index and middle finger, skillfully executing a backflip and landing on the ground below. The giant bird holding Gaara suddenly shot up into the air, speeding away with the barely alive Kazekage and stopping over 100 yards away from where the group was at, remaining in midair. Naruto quickly spun around as the 5 clay birds sped towards him with surprising speed. Twisting over, the blonde Shinigami slammed his Zanpakuto down onto one of them, using Flash Step right after to get out of the explosive bird's range. The other 4 birds turned around and sped towards Naruto, but then they suddenly curved and sped towards the unsuspecting Renji instead, swelling up as they hinted that they were about to explode.
"Renji, get out of there!" yelled Naruto in a frantic voice.
Renji's eyes widened in shock as he crouched into the air, propelling himself backwards with his legs as he didn't have enough time to Flash Step away. The explosion, however, was still too large, and the vice-captain was sent flying over 20 feet backwards by the force of the explosion before he skidded to a stop.
Shay!
Naruto angrily Flash-stepped to Deidara's side, swinging his Zanpakuto at him once more with furious strength.
"Die, you piece of shit!"
roared Naruto as he swung his sword at him.
"I'm taking Gaara back no matter what."
Chuckling, Deidara held up his hand, forming his hand into a hand seal as his eyes widened, a hint of annoyance in them.
"Don't underestimate me, kid."
Naruto's eyes widened as his sword cut into the blonde Akatsuki member, a huge glob of clay enveloping his sword and trapping it.
"Ha ha ha ha!" laughed Deidara manically. "Behold my art, HM. Katsu!" Thud.
Renji, who had arrived back at the fight scene, looked on in disbelief as Deidara's clay clone exploded, Naruto next to it.
"Naruto! Stop freaking out, Renji!"
Renji's head snapped to the right as he saw Naruto standing next to him.
"Thank goodness, for a moment I thought that bastard got you," Naruto grimaced as he glared at Deidara. "I need to calm myself down.
I'm just blindly attacking him right now, and I'll never defeat him like that."
"Well, actually, I could pretty easily, but it's still not the way to do this. Calm down, Naruto."
Taking a deep breath, Naruto Flash-stepped to Deidara's blind spot, raising his hand waist length and pointing his finger at him.
"Hado number 1, show, thrust." Deidara spun around, but it was too late.
He went flying over 10 feet as an invisible force slammed into him,
making him feel as though he had been kicked in the chest extremely hard. What kind of ninjutsu is this? Wondered the confused blonde Akatsuki member. "This little masked guy is annoying me, HM." Raising his hand, Deidara beckoned at the ground with his index and middle finger.
A big clay centipede over 15 feet long shot out from the ground behind Naruto, wrapping around him and binding him in its grasp. Naruto sighed in exasperation as he lightly tugged against his binds.
"So, is this supposed to keep me bound or something?"
Deidara grinned widely as he made a hand seal with his single hand.
"No. It's supposed to do this. Katsu."
Renji's eyes widened in shock as Naruto and the clay centipede exploded, large chunks of rubble flying everywhere.
"And Naruto!"
screamed the vice-captain. "I thought I already told to stop freaking out like that, tattoo brows," scolded a voice behind him. Renji spun around to find Naruto standing calmly behind him, an even look on his face.
"And Naruto!"
he stuttered. "It's called a flash step, dumbass," said Naruto in a dead tone. "I just broke free and Flash stepped away at the moment of the explosion. It might not seem like it, but Shuinpa is actually a little bit faster than Ninja's body flicker jutsu." Looking down at his burned sleeve, Naruto frowned.
"Just a little bit."
Deidara looked shocked at the fact that Naruto was able to escape the explosion.
"Shay! So, you're fast too, huh? This is getting even more annoying, HM."
Reaching into his side pouch, the Akatsuki member readied some explosive clay for another attempt at the 2 Shinigamis.
"Now, let's see if this works."
Slowly pulling out his hand, Deidara narrowed his eyes as he studied Naruto and Renji.
"Why don't we go with the C2 dragon? With Ichigo, Hitsugaya, and Soifun."
Soifun easily sidestepped Sasori's attack, the giant scorpion-like tail stabbing into the sandy ground below.
"Nice try, puppet boy." She grinned. "Your attacks are too slow. Why don't you try attacking me with your real self?"
Sasori growled as he withdrew his tail, glaring at the Soifun, Ichigo, and Hitsugaya through his narrowed bloodshot eyes.
I see.
His tail suddenly snapped towards the right at Hitsugaya, who simply blocked the attack with his unsheathed Zanpakuto. The scorpion-like tail then curved towards Ichigo, who sidestepped the attack and stabbed down at it with his Zanpakuto, shattering the tail with only mild difficulty.
Che! Scoffed Sasori. So, all three of you are extremely skilled, I see. Then let's see if you can dodge this.
Pulling off his tattered mask from his mouth, the hunched Akatsuki member revealed his mouth, which snapped open and shot out a barrage of needles at the three Shinigamis. Hitsugaya narrowed his eyes as he held his Zanpakuto above his head.
Sit upon the frosted heavens, Hyarinmaru, Ice Ring.
A giant dragon of ice emerged from the tip of the blade, roaring as it collided with the barrage of needles, freezing and halting every single one of them. Sasori scoffed as his attack was stopped, and Ichigo and the others looked on in mild surprise as the puppet straightened up, the cloak ripping in half to reveal a giant red mask attached to his mask.
What's that thing? Asked Ichigo rhetorically, holding his Zanpakuto out and bracing himself for an incoming attack.
The giant mask suddenly shattered into thousands of little pieces, surprising even Soifun. A cloaked figure with a black sack over his head of average height slowly emerged from the now empty shell of the puppet, straightening up and unmasking himself to reveal a red-haired male who seemed to be in his mid-20s with brown eyes that held a dead look inside of them. Soifun grinned at this.
So, you've finally shown yourself.
Sasori of the Red Sand. Slowly reaching into his cloak, Sasori pulled out a scroll, unrolling it and holding it out in front of him.
The number 3 was written on the scroll. Hitsugaya narrowed his eyes, tightening his grip on his sword. 3.
This is my favorite puppet, stated Sasori as the edges of the scroll and the number 3 began to glow purple.
Consider yourselves lucky that I deemed you 3 dangerous enough to use this on.
A cloud of smoke leaked out of the scroll, enveloping the red-haired Akatsuki member in it.
It took me quite a while to catch this puppet. But then again, that's why he's my favorite.
When the smoke cleared up, Sasori was seen with a dark blue purple-haired figure with dark skin and amber eyes. It was dressed in a black cloak with a high fur collar, and it gave off a menacing glare that warned the 3 Shinigamis that this was a puppet on a whole new different league from the one that Sasori had been
hiding inside of.
Behold, the 3rd Kazekage. Sasori suddenly gave the 3 a taunting smile, which seemed unusual for someone with a dead personality like himself. I hope that you 3 are ready, he said as his fingers suddenly turned into a blur of movements. The puppet's jaw snapped open, and a large quantity of gray sand leaked out from its mouth.
This isn't going to be anything like the last puppet that you guys fought against.
If you don't come at me seriously, you'll die and end up as part of my collection. Soifun narrowed her eyes, grinning menacingly as she shifted her feet, preparing herself.
He's underestimating us. Heh, what a joke.
Deidara clenched his jaw in frustration as he landed on the ground with a loud thud. Picking himself off of the ground, he used his teeth to pull off the tattered cloak that had been ruined by Naruto's Kido spell, which he was still convinced was some sort of unusual yet extremely powerful ninjutsu.
These guys.
The blonde Akatsuki member narrowed his eyes as he glared at Naruto and Rinji. They're strong, and yet there's nothing artistic about their movements or attacks.
How shameful, HM.
Taking his eyes off of the 2 Shinigamis for a brief moment, he glanced over at his C2 dragon, which had been blown apart by the Rinji's Kido spell.
It looks like I may have to end up using it after all. Well then, let's see here.
Looking down at his side pouch, he scoffed silently to himself as he grabbed the last fistful of clay that was left, feeding it to his second mouth on the palm of his hand.
I only have enough clay for one last attack. I have to make this count. Almost out of your precious clay? Asked Naruto in a taunting voice, noticing Deidara frowning as he looked down at his side pouch.
It must suck to know that the reason that you're about to lose is because you're out of clay. Deidara growled as he glared at Naruto, a look of hatred in his single visible eye.
Shut up, you stupid masked brat. He spat angrily. You'll regret saying that to me.
Pulling out his hand from his side pouch, Deidara molded the chewed-up clay into 10 small birds with 6 wings each, 3 on each side.
These are the fastest birds that I have. Even with their surprising speed, they won't be able to completely avoid these.
Chucking the birds at Naruto and Rinji, Deidara formed a hand seal with his hand, causing the birds to come to life with a poof of smoke.
Let's see you guys dodge this. He laughed maniacally. Naruto and Rinji looked shocked as they flash stepped back a few feet, narrowly avoiding the 10 extremely fast birds. These birds! Naruto exclaimed in his head. They're even faster than the first ones he threw at us. Even with our flash step, we won't be able to outrun them for a long period of time with these cloaks restricting our powers, especially Rinji. Even if Rinji's an expert-level Shuunpa user, he'll only last a few minutes at the most. I have to take care of them by then. Turning to Rinji, Naruto gave him a nod. Nodding back, Rinji held out his blade as he jumped into the air, spinning around while remaining balanced in mid-air in order to avoid a bird that came speeding at him. Howl, Zabumaru, Snaketail! Cried Rinji as he whipped his new transformed Zanpakuto at the unsuspecting bird. Boom! The explosion surprised Deidara, whose head snapped around to face the direction that Rinji was in. What the hell is that weapon? He exclaimed in a shocked yet hysterical tone. Just what the hell are you guys? Landing on the ground, Rinji glared at Deidara as he swung his six-part segmented sword at the blonde Akatsuki member. It doesn't matter if I explained it to you or not, because it's all over for you, you blonde bastard. Deidara easily dodged the relatively moderate speed attack, but as he spun around in mid-air, his eyes widened in shock as they caught Naruto dispatching the other 9 birds with a series of high-speed flash steps. What he didn't know was that Naruto used Kurama's Ryatsu to augment his speed to the point where he could easily outrun the birds. Shay! Deidara landed on the ground and spat at the ground, his eyes flaring in anger and hatred. Let's see if you can stop this, he yelled, speeding towards his giant bird that held a still unconscious Gaara hostage. Just as he reached the bird, however, Naruto appeared in front of him, kicking him into the ground below. Too slow, Deidara! Exclaimed Naruto as he landed on the ground next to the blonde Akatsuki member. It's over. You have nowhere else to run, Deidara. Narrowing his eyes, Deidara swallowed the piece of clay that he had managed to snag before Naruto had kicked him. Gulping the clay down, Deidara grinned, staying perfectly still as his body began to bloat up, much to Naruto's surprise. Renji appeared next to Naruto and looked at Deidara with a questioning look on his face. What the hell's going on over here? Asked Renji, turning to look at Naruto. It beats me, replied Naruto in an even tone. It's a bomb, idiot! Exclaimed Kurama in a scolding tone. He's about to blow himself up. Get out of here now. Naruto's eyes widened at this, and Deidara's grin grew even wider as his body bloated up so that he resembled a giant black blob. Behold my ultimate art! He exclaimed joyously. Damn it! Spinning around on his heel, Naruto grabbed a surprised Rinji by the collar of his cloak. Deidara saw this, and his eyes widened in anger. Oh no you don't! He yelled angrily. Grimacing, Naruto crouched down slightly, getting ready to flash step away. Katsu! Naruto quickly flash stepped away a millisecond before Deidara exploded, the force of the explosion causing large chunks of rocks to fly everywhere. Phew, sighed Naruto as he and Rinji appeared over 50 feet away from the explosion. That was a close one. Renji fell slump on the ground, his eyes wide as he took huge gulps of air. Thanks a lot, Naruto, he said before taking another huge gulp of air. I owe you one. Naruto's head suddenly snapped around to face the direction that Soifun and the others were in. Now all that's left is that guy. Sasori narrowed his eyes as he saw Deidara exploding out of the corner of his eyes. Shay! So that idiot managed to escape by using a self-destructing clone as a diversion, huh? Staring at the 3 Shinigamis through narrowed eyes, Sasori opened and closed his hand multiple times as he thought about what to do next. Soifun, Ichigo, and Hitsugaya had managed to deal with the puppet of the 3rd Kazekage despite its iron sand causing quite a bit of problem. The hardened sand was even able to shape itself into multiple weapons, and through Jiten Iron Sand World method, Sasori had even managed to wound Ichigo and the other 2. Although Soifun had easily extracted the poison through an unknown way. Forced into a corner because of Hitsugaya's Hyarinmaru freezing his entire supply of iron sand, Sasori was forced to reveal his most powerful puppet himself. He revealed that he had turned himself into a puppet, although his only weak spot was the core in his chest that held his beating heart. Even though he had revealed his red secret jutsu, performance of 100 puppets, between the power of Ichigo's Getsuga Tensho and Hitsugaya's Hyarinmaru Sasori's once great puppet army of 100 strong had been reduced to only 5 puppets. Soifun quickly used Flash Step to appear behind a motionless puppet wielding a giant axe, dispatching it by locking its head between her legs and snapping it off, smashing its arms into pieces as well. Ichigo swung his sword at another 2 puppets with both hands,
generating a giant blue crescent slash from the tip of his sword that completely obliterated the two puppets. Hitsugaya, on the other hand, chose to flick the tip of his blade at the last remaining puppet that came speeding at him, freezing it from the neck down within an instant. The puppet fell down to the ground below and smashed into pieces, the only intact part of it being its head. Sheathing her Zanpakuto, Soifun turned to face a mildly surprised Sasori. "There's nothing else that you can do, Sasori," she said. "I would tell you to stand down, but I'll kill you even if you do. Come on." She beckoned at him with her hand. "I'll allow you to try one last pathetic attempt at trying to stop even one of us." Sasori bowed his head, remaining still as a soft gust of wind blew through the area. His fingers suddenly twitched, and two puppets that were no less than 3 feet away from Soifun, a male and female by the looks of it, suddenly sprang to life and sped towards Soifun with surprising speed. Soifun's eyes widened at this, but because of her cockiness, as well as thinking that none of the puppets were intact enough to attack, she was unable to dodge the attack in time. All she could do was wait for the two blades to plunge into her chest. Soifun. Naruto, on the other hand, had seen this, and he quickly activated Kurama's shroud, speeding across the area in a blink of an eye and slamming his foot into Sasori's back, sending him flying across the area in a shocking speed. Sasori slammed into Soifun and sent her flying a couple feet back, but he himself had taken the blow in her place, and he stood motionless, his head still bowed and the two swords sticking out of his chest. Soifun quickly leapt up to her feet and stared at Sasori in shock. The two puppets were draped around him as if they were embracing him, and the two blades sticking out of his chest had managed to pierce his core, the only human part of his body. "He almost killed me," thought Soifun to herself in shock. "If it hadn't been for Naruto, then I really might have died." "I guess that's I owe you once again, Naruto," said Soifun, to which Naruto waved off. "Just try to be a little less arrogant from now on." "Your cockiness has always been your biggest weakness, Soifun," said Naruto in a teasing yet serious tone. "You should really work on that part of you. Especially when it comes to dealing with the shinobi." The 5 Shinigamis who had just appeared where they were at, suddenly turned to look at Sasori as they heard him mumbling something. He then fell forward, the two puppets falling with him. "Come to think of it, do those two puppets kind of look like a mom and dad, or is it just me?" said Naruto as he stared curiously at the 3 puppet bodies. "Who knows," said Soifun in a tired voice. "Anyways, weren't you supposed to rescue Gaara?" Naruto's eyes widened at this before he quickly stepped away to where Daigaara's giant bird was at. Quickly ripping off its head, Naruto yanked Gaara out of the bird's wrapped-up tail and propelled himself off of the bird's body with his legs in time to escape the explosion. Landing safely on the ground, Naruto bent over Gaara's unconscious body, the rest of the group appearing around him. "How is he?" asked Rinji in a slightly worried tone. "He looks really pale." "It's alright," replied Naruto. Gaara." Naruto and the other turned around to see 2 figures running towards them. The figure on the left was a male wearing a black baggy full bodysuit with a black hood and a painted face. The figure on the right was a female with a short-sleeved black kimono and a red sash around her waist. She wore fingerless black gloves, and she had blonde hair gathered into 4 short ponytails in the back and green eyes. Naruto, recognizing the figures, was surprised to see them and silently thanked the stars that he had his Kido mask on. "It's alright," he said before the 2 figures could speak. "He's doing fine." Placing his hands over Gaara, Naruto began to heal him, trying to remain calm despite what he had just said. "His injuries look almost fatal, but then again, I still have a lot to learn about medical Kido and all that other stuff." After 10 long minutes, Naruto withdrew his hands, sighing in relief as he slowly stood up. "He's still unconscious, but he'll be fine. He should wake up within the hour." Sighing in relief as well, the 2 figures gave Naruto a relieved smile. "Thank you, stranger," said the female figure, extending her hand. "My name is Temari, Gaara's sister." "I'm Kankuro," said the male figure. "Gaara's brother." Shaking both Temari and Kankuro's hand, Naruto nodded. "I know. I mean, it's nice to meet you too." Looking around the devastated area, Kankuro narrowed his eyes as he saw Sasori's dead body. "So this is what he really looked like." "Menma," said Soifun. "Let's withdraw for now." Turning to Temari and Kankuro, she gave them a curt nod. "My apologies, but it's unsafe to stay here, no matter who you 2 really are." Nodding, Naruto slowly backed away. "It was nice to meet you too," he repeated. "Farewell." And with that, Naruto and the others stepped away, leaving only a wisp of wind in their place. Unknown location. Sometime later. Inside of a large and mostly empty cave, 8 figures stood on each finger of a giant humanoid statue that sat in the middle of the cave. So, Suifeng has returned once again, and with a team of her own no less, is that right? Said a figure with a spiraled orange mask. Deidara nodded, confirming the statement. That's right. Sasori no Dana was killed by her and her 4 comrades. How embarrassing, HM. Don't underestimate her, warned the masked figure. She could easily handle any one of us. Be on guard at all times from now on. You've gotta be fucking kidding me. Said a figure with slicked back silver hair and purple eyes. You finally reveal yourself, and you're more of a pussy than any of us. No one can defeat Madara Uchiha, said the now revealed Madara, through narrowed eyes. It's just a precaution, especially since we are still without a single Biju thanks to her 2 teammates. Listen well, all of you. As of now, we of the Akatsuki are now Suifeng's targets. Chapter 15, The Den of the White Snake. Disclaimer, still applies. The Hokage's office, Konoha, the Shinobi world. 3 days after the rescue of the Kazekage. Tsunade frowned as she listened to her assistant Shizen read the report out loud that had just been delivered by the Tsunagakure on the rescue of the Kazekage, Gaara. According to the report, Suifeng and her team had ended up rescuing Gaara while killing the 2 Akatsuki members, Sasori and supposedly Deidara, in the process. After Shizen finished reading the last sentence, Tsunade's frown grew even more distinct as she mused over the report. Well, that Temari and Kankuro wouldn't have known about the little battle between Suifeng and her team and Sasuke's, but then again, even if they had, they wouldn't have been able to recognize her. It's no surprise that they didn't try to stop her considering the fact that she and her team saved Gaara's life. She suddenly noticed Team Kakashi and Team Kurenai, which was temporarily being led by Jiraiya since Kurenai had been confirmed pregnant earlier the day before, standing at attention a few feet away from her desk. Noticing that Sai had something on his mind, she signaled for him to come forward. Stepping forward, Sai opened his mouth to speak. So Hokage-sama, does this mean that Suifeng and her team are going to go after the Akatsuki? It's more than likely, replied the Hokage. So? Tsunade looked up at Kakashi, who had just spoken. What do you plan to do about this, Hokage-sama? Asked Kakashi. Well, I had sent a request to the 5 Kages a few days ago to request for a 5 Kage summit at the Land of Iron to address the issue, explained Tsunade. The meeting is to take place approximately 10 days after we receive all 5 Kages' approval. All we need now is the Hidden Mist's Mizuka Jigura to agree to it. Looking around at everyone to see whether or not her explanation had sunk in or not, Tsunade continued. Be warned. Until this meeting has ended, and a decision on how to deal with this situation has been made, you're not to going after Suifeng or the known members of her team. You are only to engage her or her team should you happen to come across them by chance. Understood? Everyone nodded, signaling that they understood. Nodding as well, Tsunade looked down at an unrolled scroll that was lying in front of her on her desk. Now, Team Kakashi and Team Kurenai, here is your mission. You 8 are to travel all the way to the Land of Grass and infiltrate a newly discovered underground complex that appears to be one of Orochimaru's active hideouts. Sasuke and Sakura seemed visibly angered by this, with Sakura clenching her fists as she remembered how he had been the reason why Naruto was gone. After a moment of brief silence, which allowed the members of Team 7 to calm down, Tsunade continued. Your main objective is to find as much, if any, intel as possible regarding Orochimaru and the whereabouts of Naruto while capturing or killing Orochimaru if you 8 should happen to cross paths with him during your mission. We accept this mission, stated Sasuke and Sakura right away, the rest of the 2 teams following suit right after. Kiba sighed at this, his hands clasped together behind his back as he took up his normally relaxed position. So, another hideout of Orochimaru's to infiltrate, huh? This is gonna be a big pain in the ass. You're starting to sound like Shikamaru, Kiba, said Shino in his usual hushed yet dead voice. Why is this? It's because Shikamaru always states that everything is a bothersome, and you dash. Alright already. Growled Kiba in an annoyed tone. Just saying that I sounded like Shikamaru would have been enough, Shino. So we get another chance to find out where Naruto-kun is. Said Hinata to herself mentally. Naruto-kun, will find you no matter what. The Land of Grass, the Shinobi world. A few days later. Naruto, Ichigo, and Toshio landed on the ground in crouched positions next to a large boulder that was lying in front of a meadow. Soifun and Rinji were headed for the border between the lands of Lightning and Frost in order to meet up with one of Soifun's various contacts, while Naruto's group was headed towards the Land of Grass in order to infiltrate Orochimaru's hideout and dispatch him, them having learned of his location from yet another of Soifun's spies, and the reason for the mission being that Orochimaru had been affiliated with the Akatsuki and was therefore a target along with his right-hand man, Yukoshi Kabuto. Ichigo frowned as he looked up at the slowly darkening afternoon sky, the grass in the meadow dancing along with the rhythm of the breeze. "So, Naruto," he started, "how is this Yagura guy in any danger if he's just being controlled by Genjutsu?" Naruto blinked from behind his mask as he pulled his hood over his head even more. "The Genjutsu itself isn't the problem," he replied quietly. "The real problem is that the person casting the Genjutsu is the leader of the Akatsuki." Ichigo waited for Naruto to continue, but the blonde Shinigami was too busy thinking of the events that had occurred over the past few days. After fighting Deidara and Sasori, the group of Shinigamis had made a beeline to the Land of Water, where they infiltrated the Hidden Mist village 2 days earlier and, without being detected, released the Mizukage Yagura, the Sanbais, the Three Tails, Jinchuriki, from a mysterious genjutsu that someone, possibly from the Akatsuki, had been using to manipulate the Mizukage, having turned him into a cruel and vicious tyrant. Naruto and his team left the Hidden Mist the following day before any of the Hidden Mist shinobis could catch on to them. Before they did so, however, they had learned that Yagura had finally woken up. He had fallen unconscious when the jutsu was released, and it was revealed that he had absolutely no memory of what had happened since he became the Mizukage, as well as the horrible things that he had did. After learning the details from one of his advisors, he immediately resigned from his position as the Mizukage the same morning that Naruto and his group left, passing on the title to a young woman named Mei Terumi. As Naruto and his group ran through the dense forest that had been lying across the meadow, Hitsugaya turned to look at Naruto, who had been quietly running without a peep. "Naruto, there's something that I've wanted to ask you for a while, if that's alright with you." "What is it?" Hitsugaya remained silent for a still second before asking the question. "What did think of your friends back in the Hidden Leaf Village?" Ichigo looked confused by this. "What do you mean by that, Toshiro?" "I was asking for a gauge on their strength," replied the white-haired captain. Naruto sighed as he mused on this question for a brief minute. "Well, I can't really say. Soifun defeated most of them before they could use their full power, and Sasuke and Sakura and their new teammate were most definitely holding back their full power in their battle with Ichigo, most likely to prevent any collateral damage to Konoha." Hitsugaya seemed surprised by this, and he turned to Ichigo, giving him a questioning look. "Well, Ichigo? Is this true?" Ichigo frowned for a second before answering. "Well, to be honest, I expected their attacks to be much stronger than they were. They felt pretty weak to me, especially with that Sasuke guy. I'm guessing that if that Sasuke and I used our full strength, I would have ended up with more than a single strand of my hair cut off." Heh. A few hours later, the group arrived at the hideout, which was located in the middle of a rocky wasteland. Naruto, observing the area, turned to Ichigo and motioned for him to stay put. "You stay here and guard the entrance, Ichigo." Ichigo opened his mouth to protest, but Naruto raised his hand, stopping him. "It's obviously going to be a sealed-up space, and you definitely can't use your Zanpakuto in either its Shurkai or sealed state. Also, someone has to keep that white-skinned sack of shit's other uninvited guests out." Sighing, Ichigo slapped his forehead, finally relenting. Alright. Grinning from behind his mask, Naruto clapped his hands together. "If it looks like your opponents are stronger than they were last time, you can take off your cloak. Also, I know that you know this, but don't use that form unless you're less than an inch away from death." Nodding, Ichigo frowned from behind his mask. "I know." Nodding back, Naruto turned to the hidden entrance and placed his finger on it. Heido number 1, Show, Thrust. Creating a fist-sized hole in the ground, which was in fact the hidden entrance, Naruto enlarged it by ripping off giant pieces of rock with his bare hands. Turning to Hitsugaya, Naruto nodded and jumped down the hole, landing safely on the ground below. "Take care of the entrance, Ichigo," said Hitsugaya, and with that, he jumped down the hole as well. Sighing in frustration, Ichigo Flash stepped on top of the giant boulder that lied on top of the hideout and sat down on it, waiting for the slowly approaching opponents. Naruto and Hitsugaya glanced around the area, which was a very long and slightly narrow hallway that was lit by multiple torches that had been stabbed into the walls. "It seems like this hallway could go on forever," observed Hitsugaya. Naruto remained still as he looked down at the ground, and after a moment of stillness, he started walking alongside the right side of the hallway, softly tapping on the wall with his knuckle. After a couple of feet, he stopped and stepped back. Hitsugaya looked at him questioningly, and his eyes widened in surprise when Naruto leaned back, drawing back his leg and kicking the wall, completely obliterating that portion of the wall. Stepping through the hole right away, Naruto left Hitsugaya scratching the back of his head in bewilderment.
Naruto. He must really be pissed off right now.
Meanwhile, a long black-haired figure with deathly white skin and another figure with ash-gray hair tied back into a short ponytail looked up from their spot in a dimly lit room at a distant rumbling sound that came from the other side of the hideout. The ash-gray-haired figure's eyes narrowed from behind his black-rimmed circular glasses.
Orochimaru-sama.
I know, replied the black-haired figure with a sickly grin.
It seems that we have guests, Kabuto-kun. I wonder. Could it be Sasuke-kun?
Frowning, Kabuto closed his eyes as he focused on the vibe and feeling that was leaking through the walls. This angry feeling certainly does fit him, but can you feel it, Orochimaru-sama?
The air is getting cold at an extremely fast rate. Orochimaru nodded, agreeing with his henchman. I was also wondering about that as well. It must be a new guest. Slowly getting up from his seat, he walked towards the entrance of the room,
grinning in anticipation as to who the powerful sources of energy belonged to.
Let's go greet them, Kabuto. Kabuto nodded, standing up from his seat and following his master out the door. Yes, Orochimaru-sama. Naruto looked around as he and Hitsugaya finally walked into a large empty chamber hoisted up by 4 large pillars of stone.
Before Naruto could take another step, Hitsugaya reached out and grabbed his shoulder, stopping him.
Naruto.
Glancing back at the young captain over his shoulder, Naruto blinked as he realized why he had stopped him.
They're here,
he whispered, and he felt his blood starting to boil as he turned around to face 2 figures that stepped out from behind the shadows. The 2 figures, a long black-haired figure and a slightly smaller figure with ash-gray hair, grinned as they came into the light, revealing their faces to the 2 intruders.
My, I don't seem to recognize them, stated the latter as he stared at the 2 curiously. Ha!
The pale figure on the left grinned as he let his arms hang limply by his side. I expected Sasuke-kun and maybe a few of those pesky Konoha shinobis, but it seems that I was mistaken. Naruto growled from behind his mask as he grabbed the hilt of his Zanpakuto, drawing it out halfway as he released a massive amount of Ryatsu that even surprised the 2 figures.
Orochimaru. That's it for this reading.
Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfiction.
Looking forward to having you on board again.